God. And I just want to encourage us, all our viewers, wherever you are, in the book of Isaiah 43 and verses 1 through 19, but I will focus on verses 1, 2, and then in verses 19. And this is what the word of God says. Behold, I will do a new thing. Now it shall spring forth. Shall you not know it? I will even make a way in the wilderness and rivers in the desert. And that is verse 19. But when you go to verse 1, the Bible says that this is what the Lord says. Fear not, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by name. You are mine. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And when you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. When you walk through fire, you will not be burned. For I am the Lord who is with you. Praise the name of the Lord. I just want to encourage us that I know we are going through tough times as a nation, as a people, the entire world. We are going through issues, and sometimes we wonder, and many people are asking questions, where are our help going to come from? But this time, I just want to encourage us that the Word of God declares to us that there is something new that God is just about to do. Whenever such things happens, we need to understand and realize that God is just about to do something new in our lives. And it's a clear indication that the Lord is already involved in what we are doing. He says that, behold, I will do a new thing. Now it shall spring forth. Shall you not know it? I declare to us today that God is just about to do something new in our lives. God is just about to do something new. And especially in this new month of June, God is just about to do something new in our lives. The only thing that we need to do in a time like this is we need to open our eyes. We need to open our eyes so that we see what God is just about to do. Whenever God says that he wants to do something new, we have a responsibility as a people, we have a responsibility as a nation to pray that God to open our eyes so that we see the new things that he's just about to do to us. The opportunities, the favors, the blessings, and God is just about to connect us with destiny helpers. Number two, it is important for us to pray that our heart may realize and know new things that God is just about to do in our lives. He says that he's making a way in the wilderness. And this month, God is going to do something new in our lives. God is going to make rivers in the desert. He says that we will not die of hunger, we will not die out of this pandemic. In our marriages, in our business, in our career, and in our relationship, God is just about to do something new in our lives. So our viewers, be encouraged. This month, the Lord is just going to do something new in our life. Let's pray. Father, in Jesus' name, be lifted high, be glorified. We honor you, we adore you. Thank you, Jehovah God, for your word says that you are just about to do something new in our lives. We are ready for this something new. Bless all our viewers, bless us as a nation, bless our nation, bless our president. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
(10,105) the number of confirmed COVID-19 cases in the country. Good morning, I'm Regina Manyara. You're watching KBC Channel 1. This is Good Morning Kenya. We'll be keeping tabs on, the COVID-19 status in the country, among other issues, including where we are in as far as the BBI report is concerned. That and so much more coming up in the headlines in not too long. We're also going to be talking about issues of county preparedness in light of COVID-19. How counties prepared to handle the pandemic. Remember, the statistics from the Ministry of Health indicate that most counties are not prepared as they should in the event, in light of this current pandemic. We're talking about the areas or other counties that do not have even a single ventilator or an ICU bed. That we're going to be focusing on Nyandarua County, as well as looking at the domino effect and how it has affected the real estate sector. So do keep it right here for our interactive segment. And as usual, we invite your feedback. My Twitter handle is at Manyara. The official station handle is at KBC Channel 1 News. Feedback in regard to the stories that we're going to be airing for you this morning, as well as our interactive segment, are welcome.
Well, this morning on our roads, we look at what will be happening along Kenyatta Avenue. Remember that sometime, at least about 3 weeks ago, we were trying to focus on the reconstruction process that has been happening along that specific route. This is in regards to the pathways which have just been reconstructed or being spearheaded by the Nairobi Metropolitan Services. So this morning, we tried to look at the impact it has had, especially for the residents of Nairobi City, and whether or not that has actually reduced traffic along those specific routes. That will be our focus this morning when it comes to matters traffic. Also, we'll look at the resumption of imports of second-hand clothes. This morning, I speak to Mitumba Traders Association chairperson to help us understand about the guidelines and protocols that they have set in place, at least to ensure that even with this resumption, it will not lead to a high in numbers of COVID-19 cases. And aside from that, we also continue with our conversations on matters teenage pregnancies. But this morning, we shift the gears a bit and look at the policy aspect when it comes to matters teenage pregnancy. To help us understand more about that, I'll be speaking to Senator Dr. Gertrude Musuruve, at least to help us know more about matters policies when it comes to the issue of teenage pregnancies. Many thanks for making time this morning. My name is Doreen Arange.
Now with that particular, front page from the Daily Nation, it reads, waiting to explode. Strategy. As numbers soar, it is impossible to effectively test, trace and isolate infected people. Exodus to rural areas, no measures to contain the spread of infections from city dwellers going home. Testing hitches, the government falls short of its own target to test 250,000 people by June. Counties unprepared. Nearly half the counties yet to meet the minimum level of preparedness. This comes at a time with the statistics reading that the cumulative number of samples tested of COVID-19 in Kenya stand at 215,037, falling short of the 250,000 target set by government by June. 10,105 are the number of confirmed cases of coronavirus in the country. 2,881 patients have recovered from the virus, while 185 people have succumbed to COVID-19. That's what we have on the front page of the Daily Nation this morning. At the top also we have, an issue on politics. Is that stop playing politics with BBI? That is according to Ruto allies. They demand for the release of the report. Then also we have a focus there on a kicker education backlog to affect pre-primary school children. With a decision to have all children repeat class next year, those waiting to join Standard 1 will sit out another year. That is what has been captured on the front page of the Daily Nation this morning. Front page of the Star, however, has a different read, or rather different perspective as to what is making headlines. While Kenyatta shelves cabinet reshuffle, Uhuru says he'll issue verbal warnings before firing CSs. That is what has been captured on this daily there, you can see pictured there is someone hitting a drum. These are members of Galion Nabil Christian Church of East Africa during a service in Kangemi, Nairobi yesterday. Remember, we were told all systems go for religious, religious organizations under new safety measures under COVID-19. Still on that particular front page, the big read is how cancer is preparing for universal health care rollout. That is from Manyara. That's a special read in regard to that. Remember, universal health care is one of the big 4 agendas, with a target of 2022. COVID-19 is a Doreen Lugaliki, eulogized as a caring and loving mother. This is a lady who succumbed to COVID-19. One of the frontline workers there, Doreen Lugaliki. May her soul rest in peace. Now, inhuman, ruthless agent locks up woman and sick child in rent arrears. The continued domino effect of COVID-19. Ultimatum is that MPs give KWS deadline for game park title deeds. This is a story we're going to be focusing on, as well as the DCI summons Rotich Thuge over Itare Dam. That's what we have captured on these particular newspapers this morning. That's what we have on the front page.
Now, still looking at the front page of our dailies this morning, with me having a copy of the Standard on the front page of the same paper. Looks like matters politics have begun dominating the papers, at least for the past 2 weeks, this week also being inclusive. Just the caption reading, Uhuru gives into Raila's demand, where it continues to say that the president's men in parliament concede to push kick out allies of DP, that is William Ruto, from key committees. Jubilee and ODM leaderships meet today to share positions after breaking a stalemate. There's a bite here from the ODM chairman, that is John Badi, just saying that Kimunya withdrew the committee list last week after the minority side raised concerns over Jubilee's membership. I'm happy we are now tagging along well after our demands were met. This is just the ODM chair saying that now Jubilee was able to meet their demands and now he feels that they are tagging along well. And also a bite from leader of majority, that is Amos Kimunya, just saying that we are both satisfied that the harmonized list captures the spirit of the House business into the future in line with the vision of the party leaders. Again, just trying to show us the relation between Jubilee and ODM there. Still again on the front page, it's spies versus bureaucrats, a new battle to control money laundering. Probe again looks like matters to do with corruption still also dominating our papers this week. The multi-agency team responsible for the president's anti-corruption campaign has split into rival camps over the control of investigation and seizure of ill-gotten assets. This is again also what we'll be looking as we continue unpacking the paper to see what is being said when it comes to matters to do with corruption. Matters to do with education on the sidebar of the same paper. Magoha's big U-turn on home tuition. That is on the sidebar of the front page of the Standard this morning, talking about matters education and what's next for primary and secondary school going children, and just says that under normal circumstances, teachers risked 1 year in jail for holiday tuition, but COVID-19 has now forced government to push this as the only option to keep children learning. Remember that back in the day, or even in the previous years, tuition was not what was being advocated for, but now since children are at home, and this is as a result of it being said that they will open early next year, which is the only option. It now looks like tuition is the only option. But just to try and see more of what is inside the paper, that is what we'll be unpacking to see what is being said and what guidelines are being given, even as it looks like we'll be turning the tuition way.
Mm-hmm. Now, still keeping up with, stories that are making headlines. Now we focus on the issue of COVID-19. Question is, Kenya now widely exposed to virus. Now, lifting of the lockdown may have eased pressure on the economy, but it has created a situation in which the infections could spike rapidly, crippling the health system. Now, with all the necessary interventions in place, a 20% relaxation of the measures would lead to 200,000 infections and 30,000 deaths by December. This is according to statistics from the Ministry of Health. Just to sum it up at how prepared or not prepared our counties are, is that by Friday there were only 442 ICU beds and 437 ventilators in the country, with over 10,000 isolation beds against the national target of 30,500 units. The latest figures are from the Council of Governors. Now, counties like Vihiga, Elgeyo Marakwet, Samburu, Tana River, Lamu and Embu, they did not have a single ICU bed. At the same time, only 26 of the 47 counties had at least 300 beds in their isolation centers and ICU beds and ventilators. Those are the statistics within the counties. Remember, this morning we're going to be focusing on Nyandarua County, and we're going to have the governor attend, or rather live here through Zoom, to just tell us how prepared Nyandarua is in light of COVID-19. Furthermore, is that on COVID-19 is that why more men are infected with the virus. Now, men still dominate the numbers of those mostly affected by COVID-19, as Kenya crossed the 10,000 mark with 379 new cases reported yesterday. Now, in a statement sent to newsrooms, Health Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe said that men accounted for 253 cases, which is nearly 7 in 10 people. Now, there are 10,105 COVID cases in the country. Now, a study published in 2017 in the Journal of Immunology and Research conducted in mice, it was found that, activating estrogen receptors in female mice provided them with protection against severe acute respiratory syndrome, coronavirus infections. Maybe this is just why men are most affected with the virus, given the current statistics that we have.
10,105 people have tested positive for COVID-19 disease since the first case of the virus was reported in the country mid-March this year, after 379 people tested positive for the virus in the last 24 hours. Out of the positive cases, 376 are Kenyans, while 3 foreigners. Nairobi leads with 209 cases, Kiambu 49, Busia 38, Migori 19, Mombasa 16, Kajiado 12, Uasin Gishu 8, Lamu 6, Machakos and Nakuru 5 cases each, Narok, Wajir and Kisumu 2 cases each, and 1 case each in Garissa, Isiolo, Kericho, Nyamira, Nyeri and Trans Nzoia counties. During the same period, 49 people were discharged after recovering from the deadly virus, bringing the number of recoveries to 2,881. The number of fatalities now stands at 185 after one person succumbed to the virus. The test was done from a sample size of 7,050, the highest ever to be undertaken. Almost 4 months now since the first case was confirmed, 215,037 samples have been conducted.
And still keeping up with matters COVID-19, looking at how it has affected individuals as well as different sectors. This is just a very saddening story still again on the Standard this morning. The header just reading, COVID-19 rules force girls at risk of FGM to leave centers, where it says that the teenage girl's world came crashing down the day the patriarch died. Although Natasha's life had been tough before, she had already made peace with her father. But the nightmare started all over again when the unthinkable happened at the beginning of July. Natasha had been on the run for 2 years after bolting from home on learning that she was about to be handed over to a suitor, an old grandfather. This is a story of a young girl, a teenage to be precise, who is said to be handed over to an old grandfather, and this is to be married. This is again one of those things that is happening, especially during these difficult times of COVID-19. And again, it's also a similar conversation which we'll be having this early morning with the nominated senator, that is Gertrude Musuruva, at least to help us understand this issue of teenage pregnancies and also the issue of early marriages. Could it also be the reason as to why we are having high rates of teenage pregnancies? Is early marriages a factor, just like what you're reading on the papers this early morning? That is a conversation we'll also be having this early morning. But right there is a story of a young girl who is said to be married off to an old grandfather, and this is just what is happening during these difficult times of COVID-19. But still keeping up with matters COVID-19, and again trying to see how it has affected different sectors, just as I had mentioned earlier, coming to how it's just continuing to affect churches in as much as they are said to be open as it was mentioned by the president. The caption this early morning reading, "Churches open doors on Tuesday. Will you enter even as they are open?" Just saying that as churches prepare to resume service after more than 3 months, believers and clerics have expressed mixed feelings on whether they should attend. Now, Bishop Mike Brown of Metro Church yesterday was shocked to see some faithful show up for service, claiming that was the official date for places of worship to resume normal services, as it was recently advised by the president. Now, this is what he continued to say, that we had to hold 3 services with a maximum of 15 people each. Other members had to leave until next Sunday, when we can allow up to 100 at the same time. So the question is, in as much as, yes, it was directed that churches to be open and the set guidelines and protocols were given, but for you as a Kenyan, would you attend these churches, seeing that the cases of COVID-19 are rising day in, day out?
That's the big question. This comes at a time when religious leaders are calling on worshippers across the country to strictly comply with the guidelines provided by the government as places of worship look forward to reopening, as from next week. Now, the Kenya Conference of Catholic Bishops Chair Archbishop Philip Anyolo says the Catholic Church has formulated protocols on how Mass will be conducted across its parishes. Now, the development coming even as several places of worship in Nairobi announced that they will remain closed despite the directive allowing them to reopen. Here's a report by Ben Chumba.
2 days before places of worship reopened their doors to congregants in compliance with the modalities issued by the Interfaith Council, the Catholic Church has formed a COVID-19 response team to assist faithful adhere to the guidelines issued by the Ministry of Health, even as it prepares to reopen on 19th July.
Places of worship shall officially be reopened on Sunday, 19th July, even though the whole thing is being opened on a Tuesday. So if any parent do a Mass on a Tuesday or Wednesday before Sunday, I think it is still valid.
With the places of worship allowed to conduct more than one service, but limited to a maximum of 100 congregants per session, religious leaders led by Archbishop of Nairobi Catholic Archdiocese John Cardinal Njue have called on Kenyans to take personal and social responsibility in and outside places of worship.
As we start the phase reopening of the places of worship, we call upon all the faithful to exercise strict compliance to all the guidelines provided and encourage others to do so. We specifically appeal to our spiritual leaders to reach out more than ever before to those who may not have the opportunity to come to places of worship due to the restrictions.
All our media stations, especially KBC TV, we ask you to receive our heartfelt and sincere gratitude for the continuous live transmission of our Mass each and every Sunday during this time of pandemic.
However, several churches in Nairobi have found it difficult to comply with the modalities issued by the Interfaith Council and have announced that they will remain closed.
As the leadership of the cathedral have decided that we are not going to open. Remember, we have over 7,000 people who come here on Sunday and during the week, and so numbers could be a challenge. While we may have mechanism to control that, we are more concerned about our preparedness as a cathedral. We don't feel we are ready to receive people here.
Other places of worship that will remain closed include Parklands Baptist Church, Jubilee Christian Church, Sitam, as well as Jamia Mosque.
When you hear them saying this particular age, do not go, please don't. I am a survivor of COVID-19. Fortunately, I didn't have any underlying sickness, and that's why I came up to life quicker. I can imagine the older folks who may have those challenges already. When they are exposed to public, it is dangerous.
In Baringo, St. Joseph Catholic Church Kituro opened its doors Sunday to worshippers. The seemingly thirsty for word congregation flocked the church while observing the set-down regulations by the Ministry of Health, which include social distancing and wearing of face masks and hand sanitization. The church ensured that a total of 100 people attended the service that lasted for 1 hour, according to the directives. The service also included a fundraiser where CS Labour Simon Chelugui was the chief guest. Ben Chumba, reporting for Channel 1 News.
And its adverse effects. We now shift focus to look at what is on the papers this morning when it comes to issues to do with politics. And our proposed law offers reprieve to governors forced out of office on corruption charges. Again, still linking matters politics with matters corruption, where governors forced out of office due to corruption charges may be allowed to access the county headquarters before conclusion of their cases should a new bill become law. Now, the High Court ruling currently bars county bosses from stepping into their offices to stop them from tampering with the evidence of intimidating witnesses. And now, under the provisions of the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act, the affected governors can be out of office for up to 24 months, which is actually the stipulated period. But now, with the new proposed amendment, at least they will be out of office for 90 days, and that is what this proposed law, if actually this proposed bill, if it's passed to law, then they will be out for 90 days and not the 24 months, which is the current time frame. And away from that, still on matters politics, coming to Jubilee and ODM politics this early morning. ODM bags plum committees posts after Jubilee concedes. This was also a story which was on the front page of the same paper, and it says that President Uhuru Kenyatta's party has finally given into demands by ODM leader Raila Odinga's camp on the composition of members of key house committees, thus ending a weeks-long standoff. Now, the Jubilee wing has agreed to kick out allies of DP Ruto from committee deemed crucial, and this is in regards to the Building Bridges Initiative constitutional reforms. The committee now on selection is set to meet this afternoon to approve a new committee membership list, which will be prepared by Majority Whip, that is Emmanuel Wangwe, and his minority counterpart, Junet Mohammed. So it just looks like the standing battle between ODM and Jubilee when it comes to matters BBI has been sorted out, and now they're planning to kick out DP Ruto's ally when it comes to the committee on the selection of matters BBI.
Still keeping up with what is happening in as far as politics is concerned, the question is, what awaits Raila on a return from his Dubai medical trip? Now, amid shimmering tensions between some of his key lieutenants and those of his handshake partner Uhuru Kenyatta, Mr. Odinga is expected to put out fires ignited by scramble for lofty National Assembly committee posts. Now, this is what we've been seeing over the last few weeks or even months. We've seen, those who are seemingly allied to Deputy President William Ruto axed from key positions at the National Assembly as well as Senate. This is one of the key issues and, being undertaken right now. Will, ODM take the spoils as well as the other, factions that have joined ODM together? Then where is the BBI report? DP Ruto's allies now ask Uhuru and Raila. Now, quoted there is that Jubilee Party Deputy Secretary Caleb Koschani, who is DP Ruto's de facto spokesperson, yesterday accused President Uhuru Kenyatta and ODM leader Raila Odinga of taking Kenyans for a ride by keeping silent on when the report will be released. Now, the SOA MP claimed that there is a political game behind the delays, arguing that the Tanga Tanga Brigade, they are ready for any recommendation of the Garissa Senator Yusuf Haji-led task force. That's still keeping up on matters of politics. It's that Uhuru keeps a cabinet reshuffle on hold. Quoted there, this is a big read captured on one of the daily papers this morning, is that when I hired you, I never announced it in the media. I will also not announce in the media when I want you out. That is, President Uhuru Kenyatta hinted that the anticipated cabinet changes might not happen. This comes at a time, when top officials allied to Deputy President William Ruto in the Senate and National Assembly, so either were asked because of where they stood, and several factions like ODM, other people from ODM, as well as Kalonzo Musyoka's Wiper, Chama Cha Mashinani, Isaac Ruto, and Kanu's Gideon Moi as a move have been eyeing or rather angling for these positions. That is what is happening as far as politics is concerned. And now what we're going to be seeing at the Senate and the National Assembly this week is that senators will converge today at 2 p.m. to approve the third generation formula for revenue allocation among county governments, while at the same time, members of the National Assembly will meet on Wednesday morning on the revenue question and reconstitution of the House committees. This is what we're going to be focusing or rather looking at in the course of the week in regard to what happens at the Senate as well as the National Assembly. Now, still keeping up with matters politics and bringing this thing to in the headlines to a close is that leadership wrangles in the Ford Kenya party escalated yesterday when a group of goons armed with stones descended on the party's headquarters located along Oledume Road in Nairobi. Now, the 10 a.m. incident saw the group throw stones in the premises, shattering windows before being dispersed by the police. Now, Bungoma Senators Moses Wetangula and Wundanyi MP Wafula Wamunyinyi were embroiled in a tussle over the leadership of the party. Here's a report by Edward Kabasa, just putting the sound and picture to what is happening in the political scene.
The group, which is said to have arrived on Oledume Road at 10 a.m. threw rocks and other objects inside the Ford Kenya compound. The incident comes amid a protracted battle over the leadership of the party. A group led by Kandui MP Wafula Wamunyinyi is claiming leadership, having dislodged Moses Wetangula as party leader. The wrangling in Ford Kenya and ANC has ignited a political back and forth in Western Kenya, with area leaders appearing divided over the region's political direction.
Lengo letu sasa ni kiti cha urais wa Jamhuri ya Kenya.
Siasa ya mazungumzo, porojo na kukimbia mbio ya urais bila haiwezi kumalizika kama hawa ndugu zetu. Ndio sisi hatuna haja na hiyo.
ANC leader Musalia Mudavadi on Sunday took a swipe at Kakamega Governor Wycliffe Oparanya, claiming he has failed to deliver on his mandate to the county.
Sasa wewe uko na budget ya maendeleo, lakini wewe sasa unaenda kuweka mzigo mwingine kwa President Uhuru kusema tuletee maendeleo, na amekupatia tayari kupitia kwa parliament budget za pesa zako.
These governors are not fools to be here because they know they have their own government, but they are here so that we are able to push agenda for this region together.
Devolution Cabinet Secretary Eugene Wamalwa, who was in Busia County, dismissed Mudavadi's push for presidency, arguing that the ANC leader had overstayed his welcome at the helm of Luhya politics.
We do not want to keep lamenting. And we cannot have people who have been in government lamenting, oh, barabara hakuna, oh, maji hakuna, sukari ndiyo, nzoya nyamuka, mumiazi nyamuka. The issue should be you telling the people of Western Kenya, what have you done for them so far?
The leaders questioned the ability of Mudavadi and Moses Wetangula to lead the Luhya community to government in 2022. For Channel 1 News, I am Edward Kabasa.
That is a report by our political reporter there, Edward Kabasa. Now crossing over to matters sports. Let's look at the European scores yesterday. On the English Premier League, we had Aston Villa take on Crystal Palace, and Aston Villa won there, 2-0. While Tottenham thrashed Arsenal there, scoring at the 81st minute there. Sealing the fate there for Arsenal. Tottenham versus Arsenal, with Tottenham scoring 2 while Arsenal scored 1 through Lacazette. Then we had the Wolves as well as Donker there. That is Wolves versus Everton. The Wolves won over Everton 3-0. Now, matches to watch tonight. Manchester United will be taking on Southampton tonight at 11 p.m. Now, focusing on the Spanish La Liga, yesterday's matches, Espanyol versus Eibar, that is Espanyol lost to Eibar, 0-2 there. Levante Bilbao, Levante scored 1 while Bilbao scored 2. Now, later tonight, we're also going to be having a match between Valencia and Leganés, as well as Sevilla and Mallorca. Yes, playing tonight. That they played yesterday later that night, but playing tonight we're going to be having Real Madrid versus Granada at 11 p.m. So pick your choice. Are you going to watch the Spanish La Liga match, or are you going to be watching Manchester United versus Southampton at 11 p.m. tonight? Remember, for all details in pertaining, stories that have made headlines, you can find the details on our website. That is www.kbc.co.ke. We also welcome your feedback in regard to what we have aired to you so far. Remember, we have an interactive segment coming up also looking at, does Kenya really need a second-hand clothes, or rather what we commonly know as a mitumba? Now, with the lifting of the ban, is it short-lived or a long-term decision? And is that particular industry ready, for the long haul in regard to, Kenya has been pushing for the growth of the textile industry. That is coming up in not too long, as well as focusing on preparedness, county preparedness in light of COVID-19. We're going to be focusing on Manyara coming up in not too long. How about we just get a recap of what matches that were played over the weekend from, the sports desk there. Thank you very much. Thank you for keeping us company. Remember, you can get details regarding all the stories that have been aired this morning on our website. That is www.kbc.co.ke. I hand over to my colleague to just, take it up from there.
Okay, our conversation this morning, our first conversation this early morning is going to be basically on the resumption of second-hand clothes. This was a directive that was given by the president, but set guidelines and protocols were given by the president, even as you're with the resumption of imports when it comes to matters second-hand clothes. So even as we await that, are we really sure that when this comes into place, COVID-19 numbers or even cases won't rise, given the fact that this is one of that sector or one of that industries where, when you look at the number of people, especially who just go into these places to get clothes, and when I say to these places, this is one of those wholesale markets such as Gikomba, Toy Market, where more of these clothes are normally sold there. So when you talk about the resumption of imports when it comes to this matters, second-hand clothes, how are we sure that COVID-19 cases won't rise? Looking at the number of traders who just depend on this kind of sector, this kind of business for their source of livelihood. This is in terms of transporters, casual workers, the traders themselves, and even Kenyans themselves who just go to these places to buy or purchase this kind of goods, not just clothes, but also the shoes in this specific areas. So the question that is still underlying is, will the COVID-19, how sure are we that the COVID-19 cases won't rise? And this is what our guests will be helping us understand this early morning. On set, we'll be joined by two guests who are the chair people of Mitumba Traders Association of Kenya. That is Teresia Njenga as well as Lawrence Munga. These are the two chair people of this body. And what you're seeing on your screen there, that is Teresia as well as Lawrence. Now, if I may just start with you, Teresia, very quickly. When you look at the resumption of imports when it comes to matters second-hand clothing, the question that Kenyans are still asking is, what are the set guidelines and protocols that you've set in place, especially for these traders? Teresia, if I may start with you.
Yeah, thank you very much. We appreciate this opportunity, and basically what we are doing is that we are working with the government. We have submitted the guidelines that are needed to lift this ban, and right now I'm not so much at liberty to speak of the people who are involved, the protocols, but what I can say is we are working towards getting the lift of the ban. And as per now, we are very, very close to lifting this ban.
Yeah, we're very, very close to lifting this ban. Teresia, remember that when you're talking about the churches reopening, there's some of the set guidelines that were being given, especially by the Interfaith Council, is that they will ensure that at least there's washing of hands, there's wearing of face masks. So when you talk about resumption of these imports, and basically when I talk about the protocols, is what do we expect to see? What kind of guidelines which are in line with the Ministry of Health do we expect to see?
Oh, yeah. First and foremost, the key thing is to make sure that we do not spread COVID-19. The health and security of people is key to this. So number one, we adhere to the measures that are put in place by the government. There is a lot of washing of hands in the markets. There is a lot of sanitizing. There is a lot of wearing of masks. Number one, as an association, we adhere to these guidelines, and we intend to get it to the marketplace. So, and basically, all the people in the market, they know. Everybody who has a shop, they must have water, running water, and soap, sanitizers, and face masks. That one we are not risking, or we are not negotiating that one. That one is key to even making sure that we'll be here tomorrow. Yeah.
Well, I like that. Clearly, again, the set protocols just in line with the Ministry of Health guidelines. But that brings me to my next question, Lawrence. What Teresia has said, again, just, the normal kind of guidelines, wearing of face masks, washing of hands, ensuring that water is there in abundance. But how practical will this be for the traders, even just for the Kenyans who are coming to buy from this market? Lawrence.
Thank you, Doreen. I think what we are doing as an association is to ensure that every person who is a trader in the market, starting from the warehouse owners to the people who are in the stalls, that we will make it easy for them to have water points where they can wash their hands, to supply sanitizers where we sanitizers, and even at times, even when possible, to even supply them with masks, and to ensure that every customer who is buying from our shops has a mask. If it's someone coming into the warehouse, they will have to sanitize. They will have to follow basically the guidelines that are there in the from the Ministry of Health. So it's upon us to make sure that all entry points in the market have watering points where people can wash their hands. We are also going ahead and we've purchased the automatic thermometers to make sure that there is random checks within the market with our young people who will be basically policing this process. So they will be at the major entry points of the market. They will be checking the temperatures of randomly, because we have millions of people coming into the market. And every sector, there are so many sub-businesses even within the market, the hotels, the places where people eat, the eateries, even their bars. We'll ensure that everywhere in the market, these protocols are being observed, because we care about our people and we want this business to run smoothly and to have healthy customers.
All right, so that is what you are planning to do, assuming that this resumption of imports come into play. But as of now, as we speak, have you put in place those things that you're saying when it comes to places to wash hands, ensuring that people come in wearing masks? As of now, is that in place?
Yes, it is in place. Since the day we had the first COVID case in the country, rumors started spreading in the market that it would be one of the places, one of the hotspots, or one of the places where there would be, prohibition of movement and entrance. So immediately we sponsored a few people, and with other organizations, we got watering points. If you visit the major entry point near the famous Mumbai warehouses, we have watering points where the borders are. We have watering points at the stages where people now where people get in and out of matatus. So we tried our best at that time, but the ban now came, and when the ban came, the market was a little bit disorganized, but now we are getting it back to order. We are making sure that there are even further protocols than we had observed previously that we are going to be that are going to be observed going forward.
Okay, that's fair enough. At least we know that in as much as we are awaiting that resumption, at least for now, there's something that you're doing even as you await that. Now, Teresia had mentioned earlier on in the earlier conversation that you are just you're just waiting for that resumption to take place. Then this is the resumption of the import when it comes to second-hand clothes. Probably you can tell us what exactly is delaying this resumption, given the fact that the economy at least was opened by the president last week.
We do not think that there is a kind of delay. What we are trying to come up, or the government is trying to come up, is the guidelines that will show us the way forward for Gikomba. Number one, let me say that people have been saying mitumba are from people who have died of COVID-19. That one needs to be rectified, and when the guidelines comes, we have our clothes are fumigated, our clothes come with the health certificates. Those are kind of things that will be taken care of generally to the general public. The government knows when we import these clothes, they are fumigated, they are good to go. So these guidelines are just to help us and help the common mwananchi to understand that our clothes are safe. And number two, the health guidelines is the issue of the markets. Our markets have a lot of traffic. There are so many people in our markets. Mitumba Association is an umbrella body for all mitumba sellers, all markets in the whole of Kenya. You go to Kisumu, we have Kebuye Market. Kebuye Market is a very big market, and there's a lot of traffic. The government wants to come up with guidelines on how the market should be. And we have already started, because some of this we know the basics, but the government wants to come up with something. If, for example, you come to Gikomba, we have huge traffic. The government wants to come up with guidelines to govern how Gikomba things are done. We go to Mombasa, we have markets that are, we have so many people there. Basically, what the government is coming up with is guidelines that will govern our markets. The importation is the easy part. But now what the government was trying to come up with is guidelines in the markets.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of guidelines and protocols that are going to be followed, and that is what you are really waiting for.
Yes.
Okay. Now, Lauren, Teresia mentioned something very important, which is a question that often Kenyans would ask, especially when it comes to second-hand clothes. And she just said that probably for a Kenyan who's out there wondering, if I'm purchasing this cloth or this good from either of these places, how sure am I'm not wearing a cloth that is of someone who probably had the virus or contracted the virus, given the fact that oftentimes when these commodities are imported, they are not washed before they are sold to the public. Maybe just walk us through the process of the importation before it reaches that common Kenyan. Lawrence.
I think as a purchaser of Mutumba, we'll start with a light note. I think I'm more comfortable or I feel safer and healthier purchasing a Mutumba clothing than even purchasing a new clothing.
Okay.
And
Why
this
is
is
that?
because, you know, there's a big misconception or a huge misunderstanding or so much propaganda on these clothes. And everybody says that, or rather, the stigmatization that was there is if you're wearing or putting on second-hand clothes, you're putting on clothes that are from dead people. No, that's a big lie.
And now the misconception is that you're putting now clothes of people that have contracted the virus.
And now,
so earlier on
yes.
it was putting clothes of dead people. Now it's people with COVID.
Now that's even more fun to think about.
Yeah.
If I may take you shortly and quickly through the process of importation.
Okay.
Number one, we as Africans, or rather the third world countries, we are not the only people who put on these clothes. If you go to the first world countries, there are these thrift shops everywhere, which are basically stores for second-hand clothes. And on these stores, even the rich, or would say even those people who are in the, not even in the middle class, in the top class in the first world countries, they go to those thrift shops and they find the best designs and the highest quality of clothes in those thrift shops, and they buy them. And their textile industries are not dead. Their people are not dying. There is no stigmatization that people are wearing that were previously worn by COVID people or COVID patients. But we need to understand where we stand, not just as a country, but globally. You know, in the textile industry, there is the fast fashion, what we are calling the fast fashion nowadays. It's a principle or a marketing gimmick by the textile industries, where you are advised or in the advertising they make sure that you buy, you wear, you throw away, then you buy again. So basically, even in the streets or in the estates of those first world countries, it is very unique to find someone putting on the same garment twice in a week, or rather twice in a lifetime. So people will put in a particular design, then they will dispose that design, and they do that for they donate to the collection points and the textile banks, and others sell. You know, others even most interesting. Let me just go back there and say, others even give away the new ones because designs there go weekly or with a particular season. Okay. So maybe today the shirt I'm wearing is the one that is on fashion, and tomorrow that fashion has become obsolete. So what they do, they even give them away. Now in the collection points, what we do, when we collect these garments, the first process we do is to
just
sort.
Before you go to the collection points, Lauren, so what you're saying is that even in the first world countries, what you call second-hand clothes are still worn, even in those countries?
Actually, it's a thriving economy.
Okay.
It's more thriving than here, if I may add.
That's interesting, seeing that these clothes come from there.
Yeah, and actually, if you read most of these publications by New York Times, they're even projecting that this business will be worth more than $1 trillion in the next 10 years. Not in Africa, not in the third world countries, but in the first world countries.
Okay.
Because of this, because there is the issue of dumping, there is the issue of climate change. Actually, I'm even surprised that people there buy most of these clothes because of the element of climate change. They say the process that it takes to produce a shirt or to produce a garment, it uses this much of water and releases this much carbon. So they are more excited as environmental advocates and protectors. They get more. They are at peace when they purchase the second-hand clothing because they believe it's doing favor to the economy, to the environment. So at the collection points, we sort these clothes.
Yeah.
The first thing we do is to sort these clothes. And when we sort these clothes, the first grade, which is grade 1, it is not sold in Africa. It's basically, it contains new clothes, ultra new clothes. And this first grade, it is sold in the Western Europe side. You know, the countries in Western Europe, you know them.
Yeah.
So in what comes into Africa, especially Kenya and Nigeria and Ghana, is grade A and grade B. Most of these other African countries, they get grade C going downwards.
So meaning Kenya gets the best of the second-hand clothes?
The very best. The very best. We are not, by the standards of this, of the country and on the importation of textile clothing, we are not allowed to import clothes that are beyond grade B. And actually grade B is actually a very small percentage of it. And once these are sorted, we also, these clothes have to undergo a series of fumigations. And the reason I said when I started in a light note that I would feel more healthy or more comfortable buying a second-hand clothing is because this handling, the whole handling process, has two different forms of fumigation with chemicals that cannot actually allow some of these viruses or bacteria to survive in the clothing. And while the new clothes are being handled by people, there is physical handling of the new clothes, and the new clothes are put in the papers immediately, or those, you know, they are covered immediately, and then shipped into the country. Some of these shipments take like 3 days to come to the country, where the virus maybe is not even dead because there is no fumigation. And then the most interesting thing, nobody washes these new clothes.
Nobody washes the new clothes.
But most of these second-hand clothes, you will find that because I know it's a second-hand clothes and it's smelling funny, which that smell is usually the fumigation aspect of it. I will go wash these clothes. So it's even more healthy. It's even safer to put on these second-hand clothes.
All right, Lawrence, I just wanted to hold it right there. We'll come back so that you can explain to us more to better understand this process, at least for the benefit of that Kenyan who might be wondering, if I purchase them, will I contract the virus? For now, let's just take a very short break. We'll be back with the same conversation. Stay with us.
On the next episode of Corner.
Ya muhimu kwanza ni kujua hali yako ya status ya HIV.
Bila gloves haiwezi.
Afya bora, maisha bora. Jipime, jiinue.
There are very high chances, Your Highness. Prince Justin has been controlled by Lady Helena for his entire life.
Here is your reward. Your child will die, saving his mother. Accept this truth.
On the next episode.
I always get along with anybody. You know, from my colleagues to the maid son.
Apology accepted.
What are you doing?
Is this really how you settle things?
He says he's apologizing. I just accepted it. I can accept again if he wants.
Stop it.
You're going to pay for this
Then
one.
what?
What?
Andrea! Hey, what's up? Why didn't you wait for me this morning? I went looking for you. Tell me the truth. Did I do something to upset you or what?
What did you tell her?
El paraíso
In love with Ramon.
Welcome back and many thanks for staying with us. We'll continue with our conversation to better understand the guidelines and protocols set by the Mitumba Traders Association of Kenya, even as we await the resumption of imports on second-hand clothes. Now, before we went on break, we were speaking with Lawrence on the, on the aspect of these clothes. When they come to the country, how sure am I as a Kenyan I would not contract this virus? And Lawrence is just explaining to us the process. Lawrence, go on with the process.
So once as I said before, there are a series of fumigations that these clothes go through. And the most interesting part is when just before shipment, or there has to be physical verification by our standards agents in the various countries where we import from. And once they certify, these containers, the clothes are put in a container. And once they are containerized, they're also fumigated again before the container is sealed, is locked and sealed for transportation to the country. Now, this brings another aspect about the lifespan of this virus.
Okay.
When you look at the World Health Organization and the CDC recommendations and understanding of this virus is that it cannot survive outside an inanimate being for a particular number of days, which is, I think, 9 days.
9 days.
And when the earliest, once the container leaves, let me take you back, from collection to sorting to fumigation to packing to loading into a ship. This process can take even 2 months.
And this is before they get into the country?
And this is even before they get into the market.
Okay.
And once they get into the ship, they will go through various climatic conditions of various regions. If it's being shipped from maybe Canada, maybe it left Canada when it was winter. By the time it's getting to the Caribbean, or by the time it's getting to the Mediterranean, around the Middle East area, it's summer. There is so much climatic variations. And that climatic variations also, according to WHO and CDC, the virus cannot survive in climatic variations. You know, once at some point it is hot, at other places it's cold, and that is even before it gets into the country. And by the time it gets to the country, the earliest shipment, a shipment by a ship can get into the country, because all these clothes, every second-hand cloth is imported via ship. Not through air or any other type of shipping. So the earliest it can get into the country is 11 days from the Near East regions, the Pakistani regions, and the latest it can get into the country is about 3 months from the Western Hemisphere. So the whole process will take a minimum of 60 days from sorting, from collection to the arrival of that shipment into the country. It will take a minimum of 60 days, and a maximum can even go into 6 months or 8 months, depending on where the ship was passing through. So that basically removes every element of fear that I would have as a purchaser of these clothes, that there is even the faintest of probabilities of getting contaminated with the virus through these clothes. So there is an element, it can't survive in inanimate conditions for 9 days, And then there is the element of time. There is the element of climatic variations that the clothes go through as they are being shipped into the country. And even when they come into the country, we don't clear them the same day. There's a process of clearing, the discharging of the ship, the offloading, the loading, the transportation. And again, it's a whole system of, or a period of time that these clothes have to go through until now they get into the market. And also, if I may add, once they get into the market, also by the time they are coming to me as a final consumer, it also takes maybe a number of days. If I'm living in Kisumu, these clothes will be offloaded in Nairobi. They will be loaded into other buses and lorries. And by the time they're getting into Kisumu, it's another 3-4 days. They will be bought by a wholesaler. Then the person who sells the cameras picks them. Then they put them on their shop, on a zianika, right on broad daylight. There is sunshine, there is everything, eliminating any available chance that there is a probability that there can be contamination of the virus through these clothes.
So, Lawrence, what you're saying is that even if the wholesaler won't necessarily wash these clothes before, or these goods before they get to the consumer, already the process itself has catered for that.
Yes.
Wow, and both of you are really in unison. That process has catered for everything. But Teresia, you also look like you wanted to add on what Lawrence was saying in regards to at least helping our viewers understand and clear any doubts when it comes to whether or not they are washed or not, given the adverse effects of COVID-19, and also given the fact that they come from areas and places where this disease has really greatly affected the people in those specific areas.
I really would want to add on to that. The smell that you hear with mitumba, if you buy mitumba in Kisumu, if you buy mitumba in Meru, if you buy mitumba in Western Kenya, if you buy mitumba in Nairobi, wherever you buy mitumba from, they have that particular smell. This is the smell of fumigation. This one tells you that this cloth has been fumigated and it is safe. It is clear of all or any virus. It cannot carry any virus with that fumigation. That is why you hear that mitumba has a funny smell. That is the smell of fumigation. Mitumba is the safest. If you look at the new clothes I can buy from China, new clothes, and ship them immediately. I can buy in the morning, and by evening I'm on my plane and I'm coming back. Not even 20 hours. Even less than 20 hours, I'm in Kenya. And I'm hanging them on my shop.
And you're selling them?
Yeah, and I'm selling them. And people have started taking them. And these clothes have been handled by people. These clothes have been handled by people, not machines. People who might have that COVID-19. So with mitumba is safe. By the time the process begins from the US or from the Western world, and by the time these clothes get here, it is not less than 2 to 3 months. Let's say, for example, a container is coming from Pakistan. That is the shortest period because we get to about 11 days. Pakistan, they don't have mitumba. So what happens? The people there, they'll buy from Western world. They will ship them to Pakistan. The reason they have shipped them to Pakistan is because of cheap labor. They have shipped them to be sorted there, packaged there. It is cheap labor. But these clothes have traveled from the US, from Europe to Pakistan. So basically the cycle is still the same, 3 months, 90 days. And from 90 days to Nairobi, to Mombasa, to clearing to Nairobi. Nairobi now the wholesaler takes them, sells to the broker sells to the retailer now sells to the camera people. By the time this cloth gets to the end user, yule mtu wa mwisho, it has taken a lot of time. There is a huge process. So this cloth is safe, and we are telling our Kenyan people, the reason we are telling you this is we want you to be sure that our clothes cannot carry COVID-19. Even before COVID came, the government had put in place guidelines to make sure that these clothes will never come with any disease. They are safe for use. Hiyo smell unasikia mtumba ikinuka ni harufu ya dawa. That means hiyo harufu imehakikisha kwamba no virus, no disease, no plague, no nothing.
No nothing.
Yes.
Well, and you really greatly explained, that to us, at least for the benefit of our viewers who might be wondering if these commodities or these goods come from outside, outside the country, and especially from these areas like Europe, the States, where we really had so many cases of COVID-19. How sure are they, or how sure are you as a Kenyan? But the chair people, that is the chair lady as well as a chairperson, they're just explaining to us the process of these goods before they come into the country. Now, to other matters, and I'll come back to you, Teresia. When you look at the past 3 or 4 months when this ban was still in effect, how would you say it has affected this sector?
Yeah, what I can say, first of all, I want to thank the government, because when the announcement came in that we have a pandemic, the announcement in February, everybody went into panic. So nobody knew how this virus comes. Nobody knew how, nobody knew how to deal with this.
Yeah.
So what the government did, they did it to protect the Kenyan people. They did it to protect Kenya. So in that line, we want to thank them, because they took time to also, first of all, understand this virus. And what they did, when the announcement was made, we had so many containers coming. We had others in Mombasa. We had others on the high seas. And when we talked to them about them, they agreed to allow us to get those ones in the country. So first and foremost is to thank the government for their continued support. This ban did not come because they do not want us to be in business. It was to protect the Kenyan common mwananchi. It was to protect us. And now that we know, now that we are sure, we know our government is going to lift this ban, and we are going back to work. Even our people in the market, we have talked, and everybody agreed that nobody knew about this pandemic, and the government and people needed time to understand it. Now, WHO has categorically stated that this virus cannot rest on a cloth more than 9 days. Our process is more than 9 days. We have verified that. We have, the government knows, and this ban will be lifted. And number 2, let me say this.
Yeah.
After the government allowed us to remove the containers that were in Mombasa and the high seas, now we are experiencing a very dry spell in the market. People now are getting into problems. People now are getting into issues. As you know, we are people of not a lot of money. Sisi ni watu wa soko. Hakuna pesa mingi kwa soko. So what we do, so many people are surviving on loans. So many people are surviving on soft loans. Na hizo zinahitaji kulipwa. So right now watu wameanza kuingia kwa panic na kwa stress. And in those markets, let me say, we are so many. We are directly employed. We are 2 million people. Those who are directly employed by this sector, we are 2 million people. If you calculate that with the households, we are about 6,200,000 households.
So it's a huge number that depends on this
Yes.
sector for livelihood.
6,200,000 households, 24 million people who are supported by these 2 million people. So we are a big, big number. And right now, watu wameanza kuingia panic. We really want the government to lift this ban. We really want to go back to work as yesterday. Yeah, because we have liabilities that we need to cover. This is a growing economy. Na hii biashara yetu, it has employed so many people. We have so many youth in the market. We have so many housewives who joined the markets, and they are doing relatively well, taking care of their families. And we have so many young men who are, if they are left for a long time without work, there will be matata in the market.
There'll be matata in the market.
Yeah, there will be matata in the market, because these are the young men who do not have businesses. What they do, they come to the market to do transport business. We have the bebas, you know, the famous bebas. There are so many. In Gekomba alone, there are more than 15,000. In Gekomba alone.
Okay.
There are more than 15,000 young men who come in the morning to carry for people. If somebody buys a mutumba here, they will carry, help the person to take it to the bus stop or wherever. And these people, every day they come, they get their 500 shillings and 1,000 per day.
Okay.
And these people, they depend on that.
All right.
If this business or this ban is not lifted, I do not know how we will survive, because these people will be hungry.
Okay. Well, Teresia, just explaining to us, you know, how this business serves a huge number of Kenyans, and many people depend on it for a source of livelihood. Finally, as you wind up, Lawrence, what are your expectations when it comes to this resumption of imports of second-hand clothes?
We expect business to run back as normal.
Yeah.
And what we are very sure about is that we want to work with the government, closely with the government, to ensure that these protocols are followed and the guidelines are followed. And we as an association, which is a broad association which now covers the whole country, our biggest desire is to make sure that we will be also be a policing eye on behalf of the government to ensure all our members are following these protocols, and everybody is keeping safe and everybody is keeping healthy. We expect, you know, it's not a very flexible business, because when the ban was lifted, there are processes that need to be done for the resumption of importation to start. Once the resumption of importation starts, we'll have another dry spell of around 90 days, as our Madam Chair has said, another spell of 90 days where we'll not be having goods in the market. Maybe 60 days we'll not be having goods in the market. So there's still a long way to go. There's still a long period of time to wait. But we thank the government, because at least there is hope. And once you have given these people hope, we know, everybody of us, once we are hopeful, we know we are going to behave and wait patiently until the goods land.
And what about you, Teresia? What are your final expectations as you bring it to a close?
My final expectation is that by the end of this week, we will have the ban lifted.
Okay.
And our people will now have hope, because there is nothing bad like people, they are coming to the market, there is no hope. That is a bad place to be. And in that, we want to tell the government that we are willing to work with them, and we are making sure that the guidelines are followed, face masks are put on, because as much as we want the ban to be lifted, we want to be in business. We also want to be alive tomorrow. We also want to be healthy, and we also want to maintain our market.
Okay.
So thank you so much for this opportunity. And we hope to see you people coming to buy mitumba.
All right, thank you so much, Teresia Njenga and Lawrence Munga. Those have been the Mitumba Traders Association of Kenya chair people. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen, for making time. Time for our next conversation, and I'm joined live by Senator Dr. Gertrude Musuruve to talk to us about matters teenage pregnancies, specifically the policies thereof. Dr. good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
How are you doing this fine morning?
Yeah, can you hear me clearly?
So I want us to talk about the teenage pregnancies, and the question on Kenyans' mouths right now is that when you talk about this issue and the rise of the numbers, is because you do not have the right policies in place. What are your thoughts in regards to that?
Now, thank you very much for your concern, and I want to say that when we are talking of teenage pregnancies, even before we talk about issue of policy, we have to really look at what is happening in the society, because teenage pregnancy is indicative of a rotting society, of a society whose moral is decaying day by day. And actually, when it comes to teenage pregnancy, it is also a sign that something wrong is happening in our society to our girls, and it cannot be business as usual. And as a country, everyone has to take collective responsibility to ensure that we are part of seeing how to arrest this. And I want to tell you for sure that when it comes to teenage pregnancy, it has to be a concern of all Kenyans. This is because the opportunity of many girls comes to a stop. Their ambitions, their dreams, their aspirations, and all that come to a stop. And when it comes to a stop, it has implication that eventually these girls will not continue with education. Eventually these girls will languish in poverty, and they'll be among the world's poor. And I want to say that education comes in to bring parity when it comes to the issue of girls, boys, and socioeconomic parity is very important. So I want to say that yes, legislation needs to come in place. We need to come up with policies as parliamentarians to ensure that there are stringent measures for perpetrators of teenage pregnancy, because I want to say for clear, and Kenyans must hear this, that it is unfortunate that when it comes to teenage pregnancy, the girl becomes the villain. All the blame is usually on the girl, on the girl, on the girl. But most of the time we find that perpetrators of this heinous act go scot-free. Sometimes even perpetrators are people very close to the girl. Sometimes you find that they're even caretakers. Sometimes you even find that they are fathers. Sometimes you even find that they're people we really trust our girls with, like even pastors, like even chiefs, like even leaders. But it is unfortunate that when this happens, the girl comes to the front and she's shown, and I have seen even in very many media coverages, the girls coming, in front, being shown that they're pregnant and all that. But the men who do this heinous act, they're usually not, brought on the front. So I want to say that it is a concern that we must take seriously as a society. And it has to be a concerted effort, that the society has to come in, parents have to come in, teachers have to come in, everyone has to come in, because this is a concern that is really worrying. And especially as leaders, I'm really concerned that, especially during this COVID period, that the issue of girl pregnancy has even escalated. When you look at Machakos, when you look at Kakamega, when you look at Nairobi, the cases are increasing day by day. And it is really worrying because at the moment schools are closed. And when you look at these girls who are pregnant, they did not get pregnant in January, March, February, and all that. It is all the way from December when schools were closed, meaning that even when girls are at home, some homes are not really very friendly to children, especially, a girl child. And there is need for the society to come in. There's need even for religious leaders to come in and even give teachings to parents, because it is an issue of not only the girl, but it is an issue of the entire society. Now, remember, girls are growing up, they're still very vulnerable, and they're really at risk. And especially children do not have the autonomy that adults have, especially to do with their bodies, to do with themselves. And sometimes they're still too young, they do not know what is happening. Some of these girls, you'll find some of them are just cheated with sweets, some of them are even cheated with chips, some of them are cheated with edibles, perishables, because they're still very young. Their brains have not really developed. So I want to say that as a society, we have a really critical duty of ensuring that we are protecting our girl child. So, and I want to say that even when you're talking about the issue of girl child pregnancy, there's some children whose issue is not coming up, even in the media. Because I've seen in the media, children, girls being shown pregnant, but there is also a group of children with disability, girls whose issue has not come up. Like you'll find that even before the COVID period, when it comes to children with disabilities, they have always been marginalized, they've always been neglected. Some of them, their rights are violated ever since time in memorial. But during this COVID period, they're not being shown up. Most of the cases are not being reported. Because even the statistics that are coming out about, teenage pregnancy, the statistics, the data we have is not accurate. And I'm saying it is not accurate because not all cases are reported. Probably the data that is out is for for information that has been reported. But there are so many cases that go unreported. Like, for example, children with disabilities. Their rights get violated. Sometimes they get raped. they become pregnant. Nobody talks about it. And I want to say, just last week, I was really pained, and I almost, went into tears. I just saw a girl on a wheelchair, a very young girl in town. She was being wheeled on a wheelchair, and she was breastfeeding. She had been impregnated. And it is unfortunate that when these people impregnate these girls, they do not even care about their future. They do not even care that these girls also, have a future. They do not even care that they're being unfair to these children. So I want to say that morally, the society is decaying. And there's need for us to rethink on how we can salvage the society, how we can salvage the girl child, how we can salvage even our men. Because even men who do this, mentally, they're not mentally stable. Because you find that sometimes men who do these seniors acts are people in suits, they're people who are reputable. But when it comes to sometimes they defile girls and they become pregnant. And it is unfortunate that a girl defilement is something that goes on every day.
Okay,
and,
Doctor, allow me to cut you short. We'll be coming to that issue of disability in just a bit, but you really mentioned very pertinent issues, and among them is that sometimes the predators may even go scot-free, but also you're working on that. But just to better implement these policies, from your perspective, what can be done?
From my perspective,
yes.
I want to say that policies need to be put in place, and the policies being put in place need to be effected. Because sometimes we come up with very good policies, and you say that sometimes we can come up with a policy that perpetrators need to be brought to book. But at times we find that these perpetrators are not brought to book simply because the policies are not effected. So there's need for policies that are brought in place to be implemented by people in the right offices. Like, for example, when men are brought to these cases are reported to the police, let that case be taken through until justice, the family gets justice, until that particular girl gets justice. And there are times when sometimes you'll find, yes, people are brought to book, but they're bailed out just by 50,000, just by 100,000. And sometimes you'll even find that children of these parents are compromised, especially children from low socioeconomic backgrounds. You'll find sometimes they're just bought off and then the case freezes. So I want to say that we need stringent, measures to be taken, and especially when policies are brought in place. I remember there's a bill that is really controversial, the KICA bill, that is supposed to go to the third reading, but it is controversial. Okay, it's talking about teenage pregnancies and all that. And what the bill is suggesting is that even children need to be enlightened about their own bodies. They need to be taught about issues of abstinence, and then parents also need to give consent, for their children to be taken through, child-friendly, child-friendly policies, teachings concerning their own health. Because sometimes these children get into problems because they know nothing about their own health, and sometimes they get into problems because their own people close to them are the ones to actually, defile them. So I want to say that in terms of policy, we need to really ensure as legislators, and this is something that we are picking up as legislators, because even in the National Assembly, I know Honorable Millie is coming up with a bill, Senator Kika is also coming up with a bill, and we need to keep coming up with bills that seek to protect the rights of the girl child, that seek to ensure the teenage pregnancy comes to a stop. Okay. And even when you come up with these bills and policies, let them be implemented. Because many times it is at the implementation stage that our policies, fail. But there's need for all policies that are brought on board to actually be taken seriously. Because I want to say honestly, that as a country, Kenya is among the countries that signed the Rights of Children's Act, the UN Convention. It was ratified in 1990, and Kenya is among the countries that ratified. And when Kenya ratified, it actually said that it's going to abide to the international laws that seek to protect the rights of children. So I want to say that when it comes to the rights of children and protecting children, it has to take the entire society.
Okay.
Because I have even had in the media people blaming parents and saying that parents are responsible of this. I have seen people saying that sometimes schools are responsible of this, but it cannot be parents. There is no single parent that would allow his child or her child to get pregnant. It is usually something that is very heavy, weighs down parents. It is something that weighs down even the child herself.
Okay, it takes the entire society. And earlier on, you also mentioned something to do with education. Maybe you can just tell us, could low literacy levels, especially among these teens, be a factor of the high rate of teenage pregnancies?
Yeah, just come back again. You are not clear.
I'm saying that earlier on you talked about matters to do with education, and so I just want to find out from you, could low literacy levels, especially among these teenagers, could be a factor of the high rise of these teen pregnancies?
Absolutely yes. Absolutely yes. When it comes to literacy, literacy comes to open our minds. And as I said at one point, that when it comes to teenage pregnancy, it really brings the girl down because they end up falling out of school. And when a girl becomes pregnant and falls out of school, chances are that that particular girl will also get pregnant again because she's not in school. Her dreams have come down, and maybe there's no one to encourage her. And you'll find that the children from low socioeconomic backgrounds are the ones who fall prey to such issues. They become pregnant, there's no one to take care of them, and sometimes they fall prey, once they get pregnant, they fall prey to men who are ready to cheat them. Sometimes men ready to cheat them, that they'll take them back to school, or they're cheating them that they'll marry them, and eventually they don't marry them. So I have to say that education empowers a girl, and when a girl is empowered, she can make informed decisions. But when a girl falls out of school, we have a danger as a society, we have a danger as a country, we have a danger as an entire world, because an empowered girl, empowers the whole family, empowers the whole society, and empowers the whole country. So I have to say that literacy levels, lack of information is also key to children getting pregnant. Remember, when it comes to issues of the girls and their biological status and reproductive health, no one ever tells them. They make their own discoveries, and some of the discoveries they make on their own, some discoveries are very painful because nobody tells them, especially when they start menstruating. Nobody tells them that now that you've started menstruating, in case of anything, you can easily get pregnant because you during ovulation time, you can become pregnant. No one ever takes them through such teaching.
So what you're saying is that there is need for proper education of these young teens.
Yeah. Okay, there's need for proper education, because this education, I want to say that this is the education that is missing from the home environment. It is rare that you'd find, parents telling their children that now that you've started ovulating, you become pregnant, you have to do this and that. Most of this information is given in the churches. So there's need for more information to be given in the churches. There's need for more information to be given in religious places so that children can be empowered. Because the minute they begin getting their period, they do not know what to do. And it is unfortunate that even children as young as 11 years, as long as they've started getting their periods, you find that they fall prey to getting pregnant because they do not know anything. They just discover, these things later. No one tells them. And it is actually dangerous, even for girls who become pregnant when they're young. Because you see, when they become pregnant when they're young, most of the time they end up dying because you'll find that even when they're going to give birth, you'll find that the head might be too big for the pelvic opening.
Okay,
and
Dr. I just want us to stick. I want us to stick on that information bit, knowing that right now there's so much information out there, given the fact that these young girls and even the young boys are at home, seeing that schools are now closed and the technology is out there, information is out there. So probably what can be done to better regulate the kind of information they are getting as of now?
What can be done? There's need also for reputable organizations to really come up and sensitize, raise awareness, so that it can be even be seen in the media. Like I have seen online teachings going on in the media. In the same way, there's need also to enlighten children that they need to take care of their bodies. They need for them to get information, because as long as the information is not there, then no one will give them information. And when they go out there, they'll get information from their peers, but the information they get may not be accurate, and sometimes they'll even fall prey to men who will give them wrong information. Some of these men will even introduce them to contraceptives. Some of these men will even, form magics, in their lives. So I want to say that this information should not be hidden. Actually, should not be hidden, because I want to say that even when I was growing up, I will tell you for sure, I don't remember when I was told that now you have periods, because of periods, if you do this, you'll get pregnant. If you don't do this, no. But there's need for us to be open and even tell children that they must abstain from from sex, and there's need also to tell children that they must abstain from getting gifts from men. They must abstain from talking to strangers, and apart from even talking to children, there's need to also pass message to parents, even in the media, how they need to relate to their children, how to take care of their children. So there's need for this information to be disseminated without any fear at all, because even if we don't talk about issues of sex, these children will get the information, and they'll get the information in the wrong way from their peers. They'll get information the wrong way from the perpetrators, or people who want to take advantage of them, people who want to misuse them. So we should not really hide issues of sex to children. We need to tell them it is wrong for anyone to touch your private part.
Okay, fair enough. I think that just sums it up when it comes to matter proper information, that we need to give them information without any fear. Now, Dr. there's this another aspect, especially when it comes to matters teenage pregnancies, because oftentimes we lean on the predators and they're probably abusing these young girls. But what of that case or that scenario where this is a young teen girl and a young teen boy engaging in sex, and then it results to this young girl getting pregnant? In such a scenario, who is to take responsibility? Who is to blame for such kind of case?
Now, I want to say that when it comes to teenagers who deliberately decide to go for sex on their own accord, we cannot say that the parents will take the blame, because sometimes we blame parents, but you'll be shocked that sometimes some parents really do their best to teach their children, do their best to reach out to their children, but these children could be having peer pressure. There are instances when there's actually a stage when children are influenced by their peers. What their peers do is what they do. But what I want to say, and I'll keep repeating, that it must be a concerted effort. It must be an effort of parents. It must be an effort of teachers. It must be an effort of religious leaders, because when we have a concerted effort, when parents are talking about abstinence, teachers are talking about abstinence, religious teachers are talking about abstinence, we try these children will come to the right path. So it has to be actually a concerted effort. So I want to say that the society takes the blame, the entire society. Everyone has to play a role when it comes to the issue of teenage pregnancy. Because yes, I agree that there are some parents who may not give good mentorship to their children. Like there are some parents you find they're drunkards. They do not have time for their own children. Some of them also give a wrong example to their children. You find some parents also come to their houses with their boyfriends, with their men friends, with their ladies friends, and eventually the children get the wrong example. We have such families. Families are different. There are those that will teach the right, morals to their children. There are those who will not care about morals. So I want to say that when it comes to blaming, we cannot lump all parents as one that they are to blame, because you'll find a pastor's child also going out of hand and also becoming pregnant. That this pastor's child has the right example at home, but when it comes to out there, he gets involved in peer influence,
so
and then he does the wrong thing.
So what you're saying is that this is a collective responsibility for both parents, the society, and even the church.
Absolutely.
Okay, fine. Now, when it comes to this issue of sex education, where are we missing it? Where is the missing link that you're not properly educating these young people when it comes to matters sex education?
Now, when it comes to sex education, my thinking would be that in disciplines that touch on human body, like maybe biology, by the time children are in secondary school, they already learn about the reproductive health and all that. But in primary school, if there can be cases in upper primary, for example, from class 6, grade 6 there, going onwards, when children have started menstruating, if they can be taught, I don't know how this can be done. Probably the Ministry of Education can see how to incorporate this teaching of abstinence, this teaching that children are taught that if you sleep with a man, you'll get pregnant, or if you sleep with a man, you become sick, you get HIV, AIDS, and all that. I think this information needs to be given to adolescent children when they're growing up, when they begin menstruating, because whether we tell them or not, they'll get this information wrongly. So we need to do it right as a society, because teenage pregnancy is something that is worrying, and it is painful because the women are the ones who eventually are affected, because the girl drops out of school, eventually she'll get children and many other children. And even when you look at the streets media, you'll find that the many people you find on the street, they're children, young children, you find their children and their mothers. Men are few on the streets. This is because they lack information, they have nowhere to go. So we have to see how to salvage the girl. We have to see how to actually help the girl child, because when the girl child is empowered, the entire society will actually be empowered. So I want to say that we need to teach our girls to abstain from sex. We need to also see how to provide for them, because some of these children who fall prey to teenage pregnancy, you find that they lack the basic needs, and basic needs are important: food, shelter, clothing, and all that.
All right, Doctor, you've said something very important there, that when the girl child is empowered, the entire society is empowered, which just brings me to my next question, which is also what you touched on very lightly when you talked about collective responsibility. When you look at probably the church, where exactly does the church come in? How can the church be of help in curbing teen pregnancies?
Thank you very much for this question. Now, I want to say that when it comes to the church can come in with friendly teenage programs that will help in the children being morally upright. And this can very well be done during teens programs. Churches and religious organizations can have teens programs where the teens are actually taught. And when they're being taught, we can have biblical quotations that show that it is wrong to have sex. You need to wait until you get married. You need to listen to your parents. And when you listen to your parents, when you obey your parents, this is a commandment with a promise and all that. We have biblical scriptures that can back children being morally upright. And when children get the teachings at the right time, then it is possible for them to be morally upright. Because when we wait until these children are fully grown, sometimes if we give them these teachings, they may not really take them in. But when we give them teachings at the right age, the teachings we give them will form part of their character, part of their personality, and it will be easy for us even as a society. The church, the religious organizations have a big role in ensuring that people are morally upright. They also help the government, because we'll not have children who are going out of hand. We'll not have children who are, deliberately going for sex because they know it is wrong, because they know they have to wait, they have to abstain, they have to wait until they get married, they have to listen to their parents. So when they go with those teachings at your home, that they have to listen to their parents, it becomes even easy for parents to give teaching to children.
Okay, fair enough. I think that's really a good point there when it comes to churches, that they play a very critical role in ensuring that people, come up morally upright. But let's look at another factor. That is probably the communities or the community, because you also mentioned that community plays a very pertinent role. But when you talk about that, what exactly can they do in this regard?
Now, when it comes to the community, I'm looking at people in the community who have a role or responsibility of ensuring that things are okay in the society. Like, for instance, chiefs. And I want to give an example of a chief who actually impregnated a schoolgirl. And this one, even the president talked about it, that, the chief should not go scot-free. And I want to say that these are people who are supposed to, who have influence. When I'm talking of, the community, I'm talking of people who have influence in our lives. Even chiefs have influence in our lives. So I want to say that they need to be good mentors. They need to talk against, child abusers. They need to ensure, they're the ones to be on the front line to ensure that child abusers are brought to book. They're the ones who are supposed to actually blow the trumpet, and they're the ones who are supposed to ensure that things go right. So when you're talking of the community, we are talking of such people. We're also talking of neighbors. Even neighbors are part of the community, because if, especially in the slums, it happens. Sometimes you find a child is playing out there, and a child disappears, a baby girl just disappears for some time, and then he is defiled or she's defiled, by a neighbor. So I'm saying that even the community, there's need for awareness, that people have to know that we have a responsibility of taking care of children. And that is what I'm saying, honestly, that the media can be very instrumental as a fourth estate in ensuring that information is passing on in the media, that we need to take care of the girl child, we need to be brothers keepers, we need to ensure that we are protecting our children. This is very important information, because if people, that awareness does not go on, if people are not reminded constantly, then they're actually going to do wrong things to our girls. And there's need to even have a desk. Maybe there's need to have a desk in every county where such cases can be reported, where girls are being defiled. And I think children also need to be given a chance to speak out, to be given a chance to say what is happening in their homes. So there's need also for children to be encouraged to express themselves, so that in the process of expressing themselves, if a girl is being defiled, then it can be very easy for the for the society to come in and help, because many times you find that girls are defiled, nothing goes on until when the girl gets pregnant. That is when now people begin to say,
what you're saying,
this girl is pregnant.
What you're saying is that also that girls, these girls need to be given a chance to also express themselves and be able to speak for themselves.
Yes. They need to be given a chance to talk to themselves and express themselves, because some children are in home backgrounds that are really painful for them, unfair for them, and there's nothing they can do because they don't have the autonomy that adults have. Some of them are just raped. There's nothing they can do, and they don't know about what they can do actually. So there's need. I think we should get to a time when children should actually express, especially the girl child. And also when they express themselves, there's also a trend that I've just seen, that yes, a girl child can express herself and say that she's being defiled, and then what next? You'll find that maybe a child will be taken to a rescue center, but how sure are we that the rescue center is also safe for our children? Because it's not always the case that when a girl is rescued is taken to a rescue center, then her life will be okay. I think there's need to have a really a sustainable program for the girl child, so that even the girl child that are whose rights are violated.
Okay, I think, that's fair enough. You really just explained it to us, making us understand more about it. Thank you so much, Dr. for your time and for helping us understand about the policies thereof when it comes to matters teenage pregnancies. Thank you for your time. All right, so that has been the Senator Dr. Gertrude Musuruva talking to us about matters teenage pregnancies. Our focus this morning just being on the policies thereof. But before we wrap it up, I just want to engage my colleague, that is Regina, on the other side of studio. Ray, we have really been having so much conversations around and surrounding teenage pregnancies. And just what has come out from the Senator is that it is a collective responsibility. So that means both For us as a society, as a community, for teachers and parents, all of us need to be there to ensure that we do away with the rise of the rise in cases when it comes to matters teenage pregnancies. Probably, what are your thoughts in regards to this, especially when it comes to matters collective responsibility?
Well, rightly put there, Doreen, the issue of teenage pregnancy is something that has also captured the eye of the president, and said that there are things that need to be done, to just change and mitigate on this. And I agree with our guest this morning, the issue that we need to handle this issue, from a collective point of view, that it does not, the responsibility does not just lie with the teacher when the child is at school, but also at the community level as a parent. And, if we focus on this in a communal way, then we can arrest this situation. Doreen, also this comes at a time when there's a lot of debate around, the proposed reproductive health bill. One faction that is being the church says that this is a wrong time to have this kind of information or rather form of education in our schools. But if we can point out what happens right now with the current curriculum, we have a subject called social studies, and, just how within social studies, you have a topic where, children get to know how to relate. How to relate to each other. So I may actually be biased as a parent to a girl, saying that, a mom and aunt, especially a mother, should be at the fore to empower their daughter to understand exactly the repercussions of, engaging in, in sex at an early age. Other than just teenage pregnancy, we still have, STDs, we still have HIV and AIDS, we have all that. So I tend to think it's also now falls squarely within our domain, especially as parents within the home. The children are going to be home for the next 6 months or so. So I think the responsibility, Doreen, from where I sit, other than just talking about, policies, what policies we can have in place to stem, the rise in teenage pregnancies, I think right at the home, it is our responsibility as parents, to just educate and empower our young children. And in the point of the conversation, I like the question that you asked. Then if it's two children, male, female, young children engaging in sexual intercourse, then who is to blame at that point? Because these are children. Well, I also tend to think, because the exposure that we have within the internet, our children are learning at the speed of the internet. So we also need to limit what our children are seeing, or rather reading the material that they can access on the internet. I squarely stand with what our guest has said, that this needs to have an all-inclusive approach, if at all we are to change the dynamics in as far as teenage pregnancies is concerned. Doreen.
Well, yeah, and just the way you've raised that thought there, that what if I mean, we are talking of a young boy and a young girl who are teens engaging in this sexual intercourse, then who exactly is to blame? Because oftentimes we keep saying that teachers need to train the children well, because the children are more in school than they are at home. And then oftentimes we keep saying that, well, the child, where the child gets the first lesson is at home, then the parent needs to train the children more compared to the teachers. But just what we draw from our guest this morning and what you've drawn from the senator there is that it is a collective responsibility. It is not a question of blaming the teachers or blaming the parents or even the community. It is all of us to step in and help curb this issue of teenage pregnancies, and also the issue of educating these young girls, and not just the young girls alone, and also the young boys, because earlier on we talked about what if a young teen and a young teen girl and a young teen boy engage in sexual intercourse, then who is to blame? So this ultimately means that when it comes to education and proper sex education, it just doesn't lie on the girl child or the young teen girl. This is an education that is supposed to be done for both the young teen girl as well as the young teen boy. And that is also what has come out from this conversation, because over the past couple of weeks, we've been having conversation that surrounds matters to do with teenage pregnancies, given the fact that they have really been on the rise, and especially during this COVID-19 pandemic. And again, one of the questions that have also been rising is that home is supposed to be a safe place, where these children, when they're at home, it's supposed to be a safe environment for them. Then what exactly is leading to these high cases of teen pregnancies? And also one of the things that has come out is that there's a lot of information out there, technology, so much is being offered there on these social media platforms and even on this online platform. So again, also what has come out from the senator there is that there's need for proper regulation on the kind of information that is coming, or even the information that is on this online platform. So that's that this morning. When it comes to matters teenage pregnancy, I believe we really learned a lot also from our guest there. Ray.
Now, COVID-19 has not just affected the way we live, with the issue of you have to mask, you have to sanitize, you have to keep social distance. It has also affected the economy on a global scale. One of the sectors that is reeling from the effect of COVID-19 is the real estate sector. This is an area that has seen a glut now in office space, and people aren't as much keen on focusing on real estate because everyone is focusing on saving. Then what are the dynamics for people already within this real estate sub-sector? We will be talking about issues of the real estate sector and our expectations going forward. I will be joined by a research analyst from Saiton Real Estate, that is Washo Mbogwa, who is going to be coming up in not too long to just help us, survey them or look at what the market is looking at. And the question is, should you invest in real estate at this point? That's a question we are going to be asking, or rather we are asking you this morning. But before we speak matters real estate, how about we sample just some of your feedback? Remember that we are live on KBC Channel 1, and our Twitter handle is at KBC Channel 1 News. Mine is at Ray Manyara and at Doreen Arange on Twitter. How about we just check out feedback that you've been sending out? Remember, thank you for having kept us engaged all the way from 7 a.m. We know we pull through all the way till 10 a.m. Doreen, how about we sample the feedback that we have so far gathered from our viewers who are watching us from different parts of the country? Well, Doreen is still trying to get that on this smart board. We also want to remind you that also in our interactive segment, we're also going, rather than just talking about the issues of real estate, we're also going to be talking about COVID-19 and looking at, the state of preparedness from the county level. And we're going to be focusing on Nyandarua County. Last Friday, the results from the Council of Governors indicated that a majority of counties are not yet prepared to deal with COVID-19. Despite, being given that particular, some targets, like, for example, there was a target of getting or rather having at least 30,500 beds in that category. Now, speaking about preparedness of counties in light of COVID-19, I'm joined by Francis Kimemia, who is the governor of Nyandarua County. Good morning, Bwana Governor. How are you? Governor Francis Kimemia is joining us in this conversation to just help us understand, or rather just look at the status of Nyandarua's health care system in light of COVID-19. Good morning, Bwana Governor. How are you? Glad to have you on board on Good Morning Kenya. We just want to find out the status report of your county and what your administration is doing to ensure to stem the spread of COVID-19 within that particular county.
Yes,
Good morning. Glad to have you on board.
Yes, thank you very much. We since the epidemic came into the country, we were able to sensitize our people. The hand washing has been going on very well. We bought more than 8,000 tanks in all the marketplaces in the county. The sanitization has been going on very well. And the masks, we are producing masks locally, and we have also been able to buy masks from the KEMSA. we spent more than 24 million shillings to procure equipment, PPEs and masks within the county. And I want to appreciate that the people of Manyara have been wearing masks, unlike other counties that I visit. And that's why we have been able to be safe until 2 weeks ago when we recorded 2 cases. 2 cases have been recorded in the county, but we have been doing very, very well. We have more than 10 border points that are being monitored within the county. We have reallocated more than 230 million shillings to fight this pandemic. It means that we have to stop some of the projects to put into that million shillings, not only to buy equipment, but also to buy food for the people who are very vulnerable, and also to come up with an ICU costing us 70 million shillings with 15 beds in the ICU. And we already have 330 isolation beds that have been prepared in the county, just in case the epidemic escalates. So we only have two COVID cases as of now, and we hope that we'll be able to contain, because all the contact cases, 64 of them, they have been traced, 14 have been checked, and all of them are negative. None of them are positive. So we are hoping for the best as we put on. We have 9 ventilators in the county, and therefore we think that we should be able to handle the epidemic very effectively. We have more than 10,000 quarantine beds that have been identified in the education institutions, and they should be able to take care of our county in case we quarantine. The challenge will be the 330 beds. Are they adequate in case you have a full scale? That will be an issue that all of us in the counties are managing. And we have the inter-county initiatives. Just in case one county is overwhelmed, other counties can chip in and be able to help support the other counties in addition in coordination with the national government. It's not easy. We have not gone through it before. I think we have to behave out of the normal so that we're able to handle this abnormality, normally.
Okay. Thank you very much, Governor, for that overview about what your administration is doing in regard to just remain safe, or rather, and also within, with the current COVID-19 pandemic. Just on Friday, we had some statistics from the Council of Governors that gave us that currently in the country we have only 442 ICU beds as well as 37 ventilators. Indeed, that your administration currently has 15 ICU beds and 330 isolation beds within the isolation center. I think that you have done some tremendous job there, and 9 ventilators, so to speak. You said that you have 10 border points that are being, this border points to just check the movement in and out within the county. But our question is, with the contract tracing and surveillance being dropped on a national level, then what is your administration doing to ensure, rather to monitor, rather increase surveillance? You only have 2 cases, and how are you going about, surveillance to just stem the spread of COVID-19?
Yes, we have several volunteers, more than 1,089 volunteers. We have the Nyumba Kumi system, and we have told them to check the new entrants from Nairobi and from other counties. You see, once the economy was opened up, we have seen people coming into the counties who want to know who are they, where have they come from, and so that they can also be encouraged to undergo tests. At the border points, of course, we are checking all those who are coming in. You can't stop children going to visit their parents, but you also want to make sure that they don't bring disease or bring infections to their parents. That's why we are encouraging children to still stay where they were staying, and to leave the parents to continue staying in the villages. They can send them support, they can send them food, they can send them money, but it will be advisable for all the particular middle class who are working in Nairobi and workers across the other counties to minimize contacts with the grandparents. The grandchildren coming to see their parents. Food can be sent. We have a lot of food in Manyara County. It can be sent to the homes. But I would like to urge the children and the grandchildren to still stay where they stay. Leave the older parents in the counties until we see how issues escalate, or get contained. I think this is something you have not gone through before, and I know when I say this is with a lot of respect to children, telling children don't go and see your parents, but you see, it could be fatal. So you are better off leaving the old people in the villages. But the Nyumba Kumi system is also recording those who are coming back and those who could be infected. We'll be able to trace them and get hold of them and get them treated. We are also addressing the issue of stigmatization. So far, we have not seen very negative stigmatization in the county, but people are very, very alert on new entrants, new people coming from urban areas, distant counties, infected counties to Nyandarua County.
Now, thank you very much, Bona Governor, for that overview. You had mentioned earlier that your administration has set aside quite a significant sum of money, for, PPEs. These volunteers, the persons who are conducting the Nyumba Kumi initiative, how safe are these people when they're going door to door? Do they have the protective gear?
Yes, for now, you can't put all of them on PPEs, because the PPEs will largely be utilized by the medical personnel. But at least they have masks. They have gloves. They have to sanitize, and we encourage them to keep social distance even as they go checking, thinking about their business. They have been trained. All of them have been trained and sensitized on how to take care of them. All our staff, 92% of our staff have been sensitized, and they have also been told that they carry the highest risk as they go about doing their business. They are aware that they carry the highest risk. They could be infected, and they could also infect their families if they're not careful. So that awareness has been shared amongst these people. So in terms of the preparing them for the job, that they are, and we encourage them not to. When you go in, don't start eating and shaking hands and doing all sorts of things. But it's mainly intelligence. Together with the intelligence system, they're able to track. The two cases have just been reported in the last 1 week. So we have not had an epidemic in the county. All the cases that have been tested, 650 of them, they are all negative, other than the two cases that I've talked about. So we are quite alert, and we want to make sure that as they do their business, they don't get endangered. And the training is continuous, and we want to increase the volunteerism, the volunteer numbers, so that they can also be able to educate our people, especially on how to take care, how to notice early signs, and then what to do. The hotlines are in place, so that they can be able to get in touch with the medical personnel as fast as possible.
Now, talking about medical personnel, we've seen over the last few weeks under the umbrella body, the Kenya National Union of Nurses, saying that they're threatening to down their tools because, both at the national and county level, the frontline workers are not getting paid. What are you doing within your administration to ensure that, there's continuity of healthcare services, amid those complaints shared by frontline workers, especially nurses?
We have a very, very competent and very dedicated team of nurses and clinical officers and doctors. And the past can tell you, we have never had a strike of our medical personnel in the county. We work very, very, very well. We have a very supportive medical team, and they have continued to demonstrate a lot of loyalty and patriotism in service delivery in the county. And they're in the forefront, training the volunteers, and the community workers. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you loud and clear, Bona Governor. Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, so they have been very supportive. We have, in terms of the equipment, the PPEs, we have adequate PPEs for them. At least I can assure you we do not have a problem. In terms of medical personnel, I would like to thank them 100%. The allowances have come, so all of them will be receiving the allowances for motivation to take care of their families. It comes in with a lot of patriotism that is required as per the ethics of the medical profession, the Hippocratic oaths that they take. They have demonstrated that they can actually serve this country and the country and beyond very, very patriotically. And I want to thank them for that.
Okay. Thank you very much, Governor there, Francis Kimemia. And as we come to a close, there's something that you had mentioned earlier, the issue of inter-county support in light of COVID-19. How about you just expound on that particular proposal or a recommendation that you'd made earlier?
Yes, we have been meeting as a Central Kenya governors. We are 10 of us. I'm the chairman of the bloc, and we want to support each other and put our resources together. The PPEs, we are working very closely with the Kimathi University and Kenyatta University in terms of developing the equipment that are required, both the PPEs and the ventilators. Kimathi University has come up with a ventilator just costing less than 1 million shillings, not the 5 million shillings that we've been spending. The issue of oxygen supply in mass in the country, we are sharing best practice, and we're also going to share the capacity. If Raka-Nithi does not have, say, ventilators, and we have ventilators, or Meru has ventilators, the nearby hospitals should be able to support each other depending on the spread of the disease. Raka-Nithi is still free, it's still clean. They do not have a single case. So they may not require ventilators. If Meru has a problem or Ebu, they could very easily. If Nyeri has a problem and Manyara we have a surplus, we could share. So there is strength in numbers and teamwork. So we are also looking at how we can create synergy of teamwork, both in terms of research, in terms of combating the disease, in terms of best practice, so that we can share from what we have, and including other blocks. Other blocks will be reaching out to Professor Nyang, in the region. Then what can we share with them, even in terms of best practice, in terms of symptoms, in terms of people, movements of people, and medical practice. What is the best practice that you can borrow from each other as governors? That peer learning mechanism. That's something we want to also leverage upon as we move on.
Thank you very much, Governor Nyandarua. That is Francis Kimemia giving us just an overview of what his administration has done to ensure that they remain prepared in light of COVID-19. Thank you, Bwana Governor. Thank you for your time. Now, just
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you for coming on board on Good Morning Kenya this morning. Thank you. We'll be keeping tabs on, the preparedness of counties in light of COVID-19. Now, as of Friday, according to statistics from the Council of Governors, we had 442 ICU beds and 437 ventilators. From our guest this morning, who is none other than the Governor of Nyandarua County, Francis Kimemia, revealed that 15 ICU beds of the 442 ICU beds, 15 ICU beds are in Nyandarua, as well as 330 isolation beds and 9 ventilators. That we'll be keeping tabs on different counties in regard to how prepared they are in light of COVID-19. This morning we were focusing on Nyandarua County. On Good Morning Kenya, we're going to be trying to just look at how prepared our counties are at this point, when the Ministry of Health has already said that we're lagging behind in terms of county preparedness in light of COVID-19. This morning we were focusing on Nyandarua County, and we had our governor there, Francis Kimemia, just shedding light as to what his administration has done to curb the spread of COVID-19. Currently, the county has 2 cases of COVID-19 and the administration has already erected 10 border points to just monitor movement in and out of Nyandarua County. The take home from the governor is that those who are traveling, especially the young ones going back home to visit their parents, elderly parents and grandparents, you need to exercise maximum safety. That is, you mask, you sanitize and keep social distance, because we know that the elderly are vulnerable in light of this particular virus. How about we sample some feedback that you've gathered during the course of this particular broadcast before we shift gears and focus on the real estate sector and how it is rapidly adopting to COVID-19.
Well, clearly we are live on Facebook as well as YouTube. You can stream us live on those various platforms, as well as also Twitter, KBC Channel 1 TV. That is what you need to use to be able to stream us live. Also on Twitter, the hashtag is Good Morning Kenya. Send us your thoughts, your feedback in regards to the conversations that we've had and also the ones that you're set to have. But just before I get to Twitter, I've seen a couple of your comments here on Facebook. More of you just saying good morning to I'm watching, loving the show. There's Olo saying that he's watching. Baraza also saying that he's loving the show and he is watching. That is from those specific counting. And then also there's one from Twitter where at Sir Bramwell says that Busia following hashtag Good Morning Kenya. Like I mentioned, that is the hashtag to use if at all you want to send your feedback. That is where you're watching us from, or even the kind of questions you might be having in regards to the conversations that we've had and also the ones that you're set to have. Let me just sample one last one again. This is from Twitter at Mark Jojo saying that like the vineyard owner, we can all see the unproductive vine. This is teenage immoralities, pregnancies, drugs, etc. Continuing to say and pointing out for government policies or guidelines while exempting ourselves. Like the attender as a nation, we need to attend at the roots. This is just in regards to the earlier conversation which you are having that was surrounding matters to do with teenage pregnancies, and also what our viewer is saying, just in line with what the senator was mentioning, and also what we both agreed with my colleague here in studio is that it is a collective responsibility. It is not a time to blame the parents, the government, or even just the teachers. It is a time for us to take responsibility, both as a society, as a church, as a community, if at all we want to curb this issue of teenage pregnancies. But that was in regards to the earlier conversation. We now want to shift gears to matters real estate. So keep sending your feedback via our various social media platforms. On Twitter, it's at KBC Channel 1 News. The hashtag to use is Good Morning Kenya. At Ray Manyara, at Doreen Arange. Also stream us live on either Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube. But keep sending your feedback on either Facebook or Twitter, and we'll keep sampling them even at the tail end of this conversation. Ray.
Thank you very much, Doreen, for setting the pace for our interactive segment once again. We're now focusing on the ripple effect of COVID-19 on the real estate sector. With a stay-home directive that was initiated in March when Kenya confirmed its first case of COVID-19, we saw firms, organizations, both at the public and private sector, embrace this and latched on the issue of technology. How then will this change the real estate sector? Will firms now redefine their spaces? And what will this mean for the real estate sector? Some of the key issues we're going to be discussing this morning. Taking us through this conversation is a research analyst from Saiton Real Estate, that is Washo Mbogwa. Good morning and thank you for your time.
Morning, thank you for having me.
Now, before we even talk about, how we are redefining, or rather how the real estate is redefining itself, from where you sit, how has COVID-19, impacted on the real estate?
As you have mentioned, COVID-19 has had a rather huge impact on the general economy, and real estate has not been left behind. I believe actually real estate is more of a reflection of how the economy is doing. So right now it's not doing very well, and real estate has been affected as such. So the immediate impact that we've seen COVID-19 having on real estate is things like disruptions of supply chains, that is construction materials for developers, definitely a downward pressure on revenues. Right now with everyone coping with financial constraints, people have lost jobs or had their salaries reduced by probably half. So everyone is having sort of financial constraints. So that has resulted to downward pressure on investor revenues and developer revenues as well. But I would say that real estate has been rather resilient compared to other asset classes like the stock market. So it has remained resilient. In the couple of months that COVID-19 has been in Kenya, the impact has not been that much or that high, but there is definitely definitely an impact. And some sectors within real estate has been more impacted compared to others. Case in point, retail sector, hospitality, they've been the most that have been adversely impacted, while sectors such as residential continue to be resilient. Yeah.
So let's look at the retail sector.
Yeah.
We've seen, firms now reorganizing themselves. They want to go for smaller office spaces because they have realized that their workforce can actually work from home. Do you think that this is going to, go for the long haul, that you're going to see a change in as far as retail spaces, or rather real estate is concerned?
Yeah, I believe even after the COVID-19 pandemic is over, business is not going to go back as usual. So right now, firms are realizing that our workforce can actually work remotely, so we don't need as much office space. But I believe that the trend will actually affect all sectors alike. So while we see that maybe working remotely is going to be a trend going forward, so now that trend is going to impact residential sector in that now developers will have to redesign the homes and the units, because right now, as we've seen, people are realizing that their homes are not actually enough to cater for families and at the same time have your office space at home. So yeah, I definitely believe the trend will continue even after the COVID-19 is over.
So then, what does this mean? Are we going to have a glut in office space, and which areas are likely to be affected? We have statistics indicate that most workspaces, 85% of workspaces are within the CBD.
Yeah.
So with these statistics and these new dynamics coming into place, then with this glut, which areas do you think are going to be most affected?
Actually, the office sector has had a glut over the past 2 years. As at 2019, the glut stood at 5.6 million square feet, and that's a huge glut. The good thing is that it's not in all nodes. So there are areas that are definitely having an oversupply. Supply is way more than the demand that is there. Places like Upper Hill, where there's supply has been growing consistently over the past couple of years. Areas like Westlands, Kilimani. So these places where you see a lot of office buildings coming up, definitely that they are the ones that are supporting the glut. But you do see some areas which do experience high demand, yet they do not have as much office space. Areas like Karen, areas like Gigiri, and they've been performing quite well for the past 2 years. Actually, Gigiri and Karen have been consistently leading in terms of rent yields in the office sector. So we believe this, while some sectors continue to show glut, there are going to be some nodes that are actually still pockets of value for investors. Yeah.
So if you were investing in, retail real estate, you'd be focusing on either Karen, Gigiri.
Retail is a whole other sector, and so retail sector, we're talking about the malls and all that. So the retail sector has also been experiencing some glut. As of 2019, it was about 2 million, and it's still the same case as the office sector. Most nodes, especially in Nairobi County, we're seeing malls left, right, and center. There's definitely the aspect of huge competition among retailers, because like malls are very the distance between malls is quite small, so there's that competition between retailers. So in the retail sector, what we see is that there is demand in areas outside Nairobi County. So let's say areas like Kiambu, Machakos, areas like Mombasa, Kisumu, those areas outside Nairobi where the GDP per capita is quite high, yet the mall supply is not as high. Nairobi is where actually there's a lot of competition. That's where the malls are concentrated, and we've been actually seeing the result of that is that retailers have been closing shops. ShopRite is the most recent notable retailer that is to close the shop, and they cited declining footfall, competition. Where they were located, there was a whole other retailer, and just a few kilometers away there's a whole other bigger retailer. So there's actually a lot of competition in Nairobi, but it's not the same case in other counties.
But you see, from a consumer point of view, view, don't you think then good competition, with the competition, the consumer gets choice?
Yeah, so that's actually a good thing. With the competition, definitely the consumer has the higher bargaining power. But yeah, so it's a good thing for consumers, but then for retail investors, it's not such a good thing. Yeah.
Now, this issue, you've said retail, we've already talked about office space. Now let's look at residential.
Yeah.
Right now we are seeing what we are experiencing, rural-urban migration that has been brought forth by COVID-19.
Yeah.
Do you think this is one way or another going to also influence, the issues of residential sector?
So the residential sector, as I said, has been quite resilient because, even with COVID-19, people have to live somewhere. But even before COVID-19, we were seeing some sectors overheating, so there was a bit of a supply-demand mismatch, especially in upper market areas. So currently what we're seeing is those upper market areas are experiencing a price correction. So if the prices were way above market average or what people could afford, now they're coming down because developers and investors are ready, or they are desperate to get rid of stock that has been in the market for a long time. However, what we do expect with COVID-19 is that there's going to be a way bigger demand for affordable housing. Already, even before COVID-19, we're already talking about affordable housing and the need for low-cost homes. So right now, with people having income challenges, we definitely do expect that the demand within the residential sector is going now to be in the lower middle market. There's the aspect of where people now will want to live, especially after seeing the pandemic and what impact it can have on your life. So we do expect people now to move towards areas that are sparsely populated, I would say, because especially within suburbs, the population is quite dense. So we expect now demand to shift away from Nairobi in areas that are cheap or affordable, and those that are sparsely populated.
How about we unpack that? The issue of affordable housing is going to be on demand, with suppressed income as it is. Now, when you say affordable housing, from where you sit with your research, where are these affordable housing units currently? How are they spread out?
So currently, affordable housing is still quite a huge challenge. We've been expecting the government to deliver its promise of 500,000 units, and they haven't. They're not even near the target. I think as of now, they've only built about just a few hundreds, I think 200, 300 at most units. So the onus is definitely on the private sector to come in and do whatever the government is not doing. So the issue for developers is usually, the main challenge is usually land cost. And within Nairobi County, the land costs are quite high. So for the private sector to come in and fill in this gap, they have to definitely go where land is affordable to allow them to build affordable homes. So where land is affordable is definitely in the satellite towns, areas like Kwiru, areas like Ruaka, areas like Ngong, at the river. So those places we have infrastructure, and we have affordable land, and we have land in huge supply. So the other challenge with Nairobi County is that development land is quite in short supply, and that also plays a factor in why the land prices are so high. So in those areas we have affordable land, and definitely the land is in bulk supply, so you can get huge parcels of land. And that's why we've been seeing actually a lot of master planned communities, areas that are built, projects that are built on hundreds or thousands of acres. So yeah, that's where we expect developers to
look at. There's also been this question: how affordable is affordable? From where you sit, let's look at for example, someone who takes home currently 30,000 shillings.
Yeah.
What would be affordable in terms of affordable housing for him or her?
Yeah, so affordable is definitely a relative term. So affordable is different. So for a person who's earning 30,000, we usually go by some UN recommendation. So according to the UN, you're not supposed to spend, or rather you're supposed to spend about 30% of your income, not more. You can spend less, but not more, on rent. So if you're earning 30,000, assuming that is net, 30% of that, it means you're supposed to spend about 9,000 per month or on rent. So the issue is now when that comes to buying a home, it's rather not possible because you are supposed to, most people depend on mortgages or loans, so you cannot service the mortgage with 9,000 shillings per month. So I think that's why a lot of people opt for renting, because you can get a rental for 9,000 shillings. But now to get a good rental, you definitely know that's why people now go for areas that are way further from the CBD, but they're able to get a good house or a decent house for that kind of money. So the thing is, people now they forgo the long commutes for a good house. Yeah.
Now you've talked about mortgages. The way things look. Are we expecting, a suppressed uptick of mortgages, brought about by the issue of COVID-19?
Yeah, definitely. Mortgages have been an issue in Kenya for quite a long time because in our country, not a lot of people earn enough income to be able to service the mortgage or to even be able to take a mortgage from a lending institution. So according to data from the KNBS, I think about 2.9% of Kenyans earn more than 100,000 shillings. So majority earn below, about 75% earn below 50,000 shillings. So with 50,000 shillings, it's also quite impossible to service a mortgage or to get a mortgage in this country. And now with COVID-19, now even that is going to be even worse because a lot of people have lost their jobs. A lot of people, other people have gotten salary cuts. So when if there was a mortgage challenge before, right now it's going to be even worse. That's what we expect. But then there's also the aspect of the Kenya Mortgage Refinancing Company. So it's this institution that was started by the government and the World Bank to make mortgages more affordable. So by making mortgages more affordable is by providing long-term mortgages, probably up to 20-25 years and at lower interest rates. So the issue with the mortgage market, what we've been seeing currently without the institution is that we have high interest rates and the mortgage periods are very low. Yeah. So on average, it's usually like 5 to 12 years. So that makes monthly payments way, way high. So with this institution, if they make mortgage periods longer, the monthly payments will be much lower and a lot of people will be able to afford or take mortgages. But the thing is, the institution is taking a long time to become operational. It started in 2018, I believe, and up to now it hasn't. But I believe they did announce some time back, I think 2 weeks ago, that they are ready to commence operations, but they haven't released official communication. But with the institution, we definitely now expect mortgages will be more affordable, or they'll help to make the impact of COVID-19 way less on the market. Yeah.
Now, this is a question from a developer point of view. If I was liquid enough and I wanted to, I'm in the real estate and I'm eyeing to just invest, what would you recommend? Would I go for affordable housing, or what you call social housing, and where would I be investing? And just in terms of returns, would they be short-term, long-term?
Yeah.
Where would you advise a developer to actually invest in right now?
So as an investor, it definitely you have to consider a lot of factors, but generally in real estate, it's a long-term goal. That's the best. That's why you reap the biggest returns. So with especially like residential, so you can go for low-cost housing where majority of demand is going to be, because a lot of Kenyans now are going to be actually low-income earners. So definitely there's demand for affordable housing. However, even in the upper markets, there's still pockets of value. So areas like Westlands, areas like Kilimani, you get good rental yields of even up to 7%. So it just requires you to do your research and to identify that niche properties where you can get rental yields. So even those markets that are overheating, you can get a good deal that guarantees you good returns based on whether you want rent to yield or capital appreciation, yes, you can definitely get those pockets of value. In the commercial office sector, as I mentioned before, some areas, most nodes are experiencing an oversupply, but there are those areas that have good demand, especially from multinational firms and big corporate firms in Kenya, areas like Karen, areas like Giri, where the supply is not as high. So I wouldn't advise you to go to areas like Upper Hill or CBD because there's already so many office buildings. So you have to look at those areas where the supply is not as much. For retail sector, Nairobi, we are seeing a huge oversupply, so the demand is not as high. The supply is way more than demand. So for retail sector, we advise either you are investing in mixed-use development, because actually mixed-use development now is going to be another trend that is going to catch on quite quick. People right now are seeing what with COVID-19, you want to live in a place, or even with another pandemic, we don't know if there's ever going to be any other. So we definitely do see people want to live in a place where you can live, you can work, you can shop, in just without having to go outside your compound. So that's where mixed-use developments come in, and retail developments are big on that. So if you look at development like Two Rivers or Garden City, where you can live, you can work, you can shop, you can do so many activities, recreational activities. So such properties are going to be in huge demand within the retail sector, and definitely now in those counties where the GDP per capita is quite high, so people have high spending power, and yet the mall space is not as much. The hospitality sector, with tourism being affected.
Now, before we talk about the hospitality industry, we've seen uptake of furnished apartments, on the rise. Why do you think this is coming up, especially when you're talking about residential?
The furnished apartments are actually a trend that has grown quite high over the past couple of years. And the thing is, there's this demand for short stay luxury apartments. Hotels are tend to be, if you look at the daily charges for hotels, it's quite high. But now if you think you can get a well-furnished apartment, which serves, it's like a home away from home. So you get to be in a whole new environment that is already furnished for you. And you don't have to go to a hotel. Then for people who just want to go for vacation in a different location without having to pay for so much in a hotel, then that's why we're seeing a lot of demand for furnished apartments. The other factor is that with foreigners coming into the country, and maybe you're coming for 1 month, 2 months, you don't have to go stay at a hotel, which at the end of the day you're going to be paying for so much. Well, you can stay in a good location like Kilimani or Westlands in a furnished apartment.
Now that brings us now to the hospitality industry. You've said from where you sit, this has been one of the worst hit areas, or other sectors by COVID-19. We've seen a trend with hotels, especially repurposing their spaces. In that now, other than just offering meals, they're also repurposing their spaces to offer a conducive place to actually work from. Is this a trend you see catching on for the long term for the hospitality industry?
Not really, because the hospitality sector, the issue is that it's quite reliant on tourism, and by tourism, most of the tourism comes from outside. So now with that not happening at all, hotels within, they have to change their business models to at least survive during the pandemic. But definitely once tourism is back on track, we expect hospitality sector is actually going to be one of the sectors that will recover quite quickly, because we expect now, with people having been locked up for quite a long time, the travel bug will be quite high, so there's going to be a lot of travels, and we definitely expect the hotel sector to recover as quickly as the pandemic is over. But for now, they definitely have to support themselves through the pandemic, so that's why we're seeing them repurposing their facilities and trying, just trying to survive through the pandemic.
Now, from where you sit, Washu, the performance of the sector, for the first 6 months, January to June, how does it compare with last year? A time like this, January to June, how did it compare?
For the various sectors, the one sector that was affected, as I said, was hospitality and retail. So compared to in the first half of 2020 compared to the first half of last year,
yes.
For instance, rent yields this year, they came in at about 7.4%, and last year they were at about 8%. Occupancy rates, they also declined by quite a lot. I think they were averaging at about 75-76%, and this year they're about 70 or to 74%. So the decline in occupancy rates has been quite notable. Same case for the office sector, with businesses closing down, no more uptake for the available office spaces. So occupancy rates and rent yields have also gone down by quite a huge percentage. But the one sector that has remained resilient is residential sector. So occupancy has remained relatively the same, and also we did see, compared to last year, like the price per square meter or the unit prices for homes did actually increase this year. So when you look at the price per square meter as of 2019 in June versus June as of this year, the price per square meter has gone high. What has happened is that the difference between the notable difference has been between March and June. So with the COVID-19, we did see we have seen a lot of not really a lot, but some people trying to sell residential properties as distressed properties. So between March and June, we saw that's where we saw the decline in prices. But compared to last year, prices remained either relatively the same or they increased marginally. Yeah.
Now, just speaking away, just without just looking at Nairobi, let's talk about counties neighboring Nairobi.
Yeah.
We have Kiambu, we have Machakos, we have Kajiado. These counties that are around Nairobi. How has it been in as far as the real estate sector? What are our expectations going forward?
So for areas around Nairobi, those are satellite towns, we are seeing a lot of focus or developers launching affordable projects. So that's the one thing that is happening for satellite towns, low-cost homes and site and service schemes, because the middle class is now shifting away from Nairobi to those towns because it's more affordable to live there overall. So a lot of people are, even though you work in Nairobi, they're choosing to go live in areas like at the river, areas like Thika, Ruiru, Ruaka, where housing is affordable. But overall, if you put together the transport or the commuting cost plus the living cost, is quite affordable for you compared to living in Nairobi. So we do expect that to continue because those are the areas that are exhibiting a lot of demand, especially for low cost. So as I mentioned before, there are factors that are supporting those areas, availability of infrastructure. The government has been continuing to improve infrastructure in those areas. Case in point, in Ruaka, there is the construction of the Western Bypass ongoing. There's the expansion of the Northern Bypass already. They launched water and sewage projects just recently. So there's a lot of going on. There's a lot of activities going on for satellite towns that are going to be able to support developer activities. And for developers, we definitely see them focusing more on affordable housing.
Now, with this demand within those satellite towns, then are you seeing a situation where rental prices are likely to go up because of increased demand in these areas?
Yes, definitely. With demand means more growth in prices and rents. So yes, definitely that's going to be a factor, because unless now the demand was low, that's when now prices and rents come down. But as long as demand continues to grow, then rents and prices are also going to continue growing, and that's a good thing for investors and developers, and that's why they should look at such areas for investment.
Now, as we come to a close, from where you sit, what are your projections for the next half? The next half of 2020. What do you see in the next? What do you see in the next 6 months?
Well, it's quite hard to tell, especially with COVID-19. Experts are projecting that the pandemic will be over by Q4 this year. Some are saying 2021. The farthest I've seen is 2022. But the real estate sector is generally going to go hand in hand with however the economy will be performing. So our projection is that, especially right now, already the economy has started to reopen. So with the economy reopening, people will start spending more. And one thing that has affected the real estate sector and any other sector is the reduction in consumer spending. So as the economy reopens and regains its momentum and people start spending again, then we definitely do expect the real estate sector to recover. Right now we remain neutral. We're not too positive or too negative. We just remain neutral because we do expect things to get better. Already they're getting better with the economy reopening. So demand for investors, they definitely have to undertake their research and just see where demand is. With areas like, with sectors like the retail sector, we expect already e-commerce shopping has taken hold, or it's growing quite fast. So for retail sector, we definitely expect growth in e-commerce. And e-commerce, on the other hand, supports the industrial sector. So we do expect to see demand for more industrial space, modern logistic hubs, so that's going to grow. For the office sector and the residential sector, we expect for both to recover within the next 6 months, or even the farthest it can go to, it's probably next year as the economy activities come back. But we do expect developers also to take advantage of the fact that digital tools are going to help them in their businesses while the pandemic is still ongoing. So they have to now change their business models, because that's the one thing that is proving to be helpful during these times, being digital and making use of technology and any other innovations.
So, Washo, real estate is still a place to invest in long term, COVID-19 or not? Okay. Not just for Kenya, right? Also regionally.
Actually, there's a poll that was done recently by an international research firm called Gallup, and investors. It was actually done last week, or released last week rather. Investors show 35% chose real estate as their number one investment, and then the rest, 20% were they said things like gold, the stock market. So yes, investors globally still choose real estate as their number one investment, and it's a long-term. The good thing with real estate is that it's a long-term goal. So while COVID-19 is probably short-term or medium-term, so real estate is going to definitely outperform the impact of COVID-19 on investments.
Very well said. That has been our guest this morning, Washo Mbogo, research analyst at Citon Real Estate. And just to borrow a few tidbits from her, is that indeed the real estate will outperform COVID-19. So if you are eyeing a long-term investment, well, then you need to look at the real estate sector, especially, affordable housing, and expected that there's going to be a lot of demand for affordable housing with the current, economic status, as well as we expect going into the future that residentials are going to take a different turn, and accommodate that office space. Right now with, Kenyans having already experienced that, you can work from home. So we're going to see, developers focus on that. And in regard to office spaces, well, there's a glut within Nairobi, but there's also demand in areas like, Karen and Gigiri, where there's demand. So that's a place you need to focus on if you're keen on investing in the real estate and looking at, in matters of office space as it is. Now for retail, there's a glut within the CBD, but there's also demand. There's also demand in, satellite towns and counties like Machakos and the likes. So that has been the take home from this conversation in regard to the real estate. Taking home there from our guest there, who is Washo Mbogo, saying she is confident that the real estate sector will outlive COVID-19. So if you're looking for a place to invest long-term, the real estate sector is still a viable option. I've been your host, Regina Manyara. Let's see you tomorrow, same time, for conversations that make sense to you and I. Have a great day ahead.
meditation time. Tumetoka meditation time. The higher you go, the higher you become.
He has made a name for himself in the media in this popular breakfast radio show in Radio Jumbo with his infectious laughter, which has turned to be the best medicine for a society that is bedeviled with so many problems.
I'm a happy soul, so even in trouble, I laugh, because what can you change even if you get annoyed? Have you ever seen when you're in trouble, if you cry, can it solve problems? Tears don't solve problems, so for me, I'm a happy soul, I'm happy.
He has also made a name for himself as a football analyst cum commentator, whose vast experience has come in handy not only local but international matches.
Marcelo with the ball. He plays to Aroe. Aroe to Diblo. Diblo in front of goal. Can he take a shot? Okay. It's now Tyson changing direction here. Diblo loses it. And then Des has the ball. Now with what a goal! Super nice shot from Tyson, and for sure the green team leading by 1-0. And Ian with the ball again and takes a shot. What a good shot, but Ramadan in goal takes it easy, starts the ball on the other side.
Jacob Gospole is also the man behind the formation of the Liberty Sports Academy with the later Tetesla of Ghana, which earned promotion in the National Division 1 League after they emerged victorious in Division 1 in 2016, with the ultimate aim being the Kenya Premier League, and which has also nurtured so many talents, including the lethal striker Michael Olunga.
Liberty is an academy that was mooted out of I would say Harambee Stars frustrations. Actually, we were two founder members, the late Alhaji Sly Tete, the Ghanaian football guru, and may his soul rest in eternal peace. When I met Sly, I met him in 2003 in Ghana. When Harambee Stars, we had a lot of problems. We landed in Ghana on our way to en route to 2004 Cup of Nations. And I saw a gentleman who came to help Harambee Stars because that time we were stuck. In Ghana, we didn't have a bus, we didn't have hotel accommodation. So he came to our rescue, he came to our aid, and I said, oh, what a good man. The rest is history, because from there, we became big friends. And I realized he was an owner of Liberty Professionals in Ghana and also Liberty Academy in Togo. So we mooted the idea in 2008 and started Liberty in Kenya. However, as fate would have it, just immediately we started 3 years down the line. He lost his life in Gold Coast in Ghana when he was playing football. And since then, the Liberty was left to me with all the things. I mean, like, we had just started. We had a bigger plan to start a football academy where we would have a school, have a curriculum, and play football. It's been a big sacrifice for Liberty, but for the love of the game. Football is my passion, and I've stayed with Liberty. So we have risen from the ranks, I mean, from county level, provincial, up to where we are now in Division 1. And God willing, I mean, in 2 years' time or 3 years, our aim, of course, is to play in the Kenya Premier League. We are not far from our dream. My joy is that we are able to develop young players because we have all age categories. The team that is just playing right now, that is the senior category. We participate in underage tournaments. We were in League Indogo, the first time they inaugurated the under-12 teams. And then we play in different leagues. But all in all, I'm happy with the progress that we are making. We have developed a lot of players from here. Of course, some of the players that we have Kasavuki, is in Nakumat on loan. Then we have also Anthony Mbogwa, who is in Gor Mahia on loan. And the biggest story, of course, coming from Liberty is Michael Olunga right now playing in Spain.
And that's his way of, among others, giving back to the society that nurtured him in Eastlands, where he grew up.
I came from a single mom, and we were so many in our family. Actually, we were 11. And I would see how my mom would provide for us. And that really is an inspiration today, because I say, if I've come from a family of 11, and one mother, and she was able to cater for us. Then what more can't I do as a person?
He featured in the Kadenge Cup, British Airways Cup, among others, while in secondary school, where he won many accolades. He later joined Volcano and Reunion as a keeper before he eventually landed in Tusker FC, where he earned his nickname Ghost.
The name Ghost is a long story. I used to play football as a goalkeeper in Jericho. That's where I come to Yoyo today. That's where my football career started. And as a keeper, the goals never had nets. So I used to make a lot of saves. So that's how the name Ghost started. However, the Zambia team that perished in that crash in Gabon, they had their goalkeeper also called Ghost Mulenga. So Ghost Mulei and Ghost Mulenga, so that name Ghost stuck, and that's what is a Ghost today.
Jacob wound up as a striker in Tusker, where they featured prominently across the region. He later became their coach to guide them to 3 Premier League titles and 3 Kagame Interclubs triumphs as well.
I played football at, I would say, even the highest level, because I played football in Jericho. I played football in school, actually of Fafa Jericho. And then I played in Tusker. Tusker, I went there as a goalkeeper. I was the 3rd keeper after Kibera, the late Kibera. God rest his soul in peace, Swalengoi, and then I was there. Then I finished as a striker, because I could play forward and I could play goalkeeper. That is rare talent. And today, I can't play as a goalkeeper, because with my age, if I go down, I don't know when I'll wake up. Okay, so I just play as a striker today, but though with not the same speed.
And that's where he found his footing to become one of the most successful football coaches in the country, to earn his way to the national soccer team Harambee Stars, which shook the continent in the late 90s under the reign of the late Reynard Fabish.
I had good days and bad days in the Kenyan football, and I don't regret it, because the bad days prepared me for better days ahead. I would say I've had big experiences being in the national team. My first time I worked under a very good coach, the late Fabish, Reynard Fabish, and God rest his soul in eternal peace. So he groomed me in how to run the national team. So when I took the mantle from him, there was nothing to worry. I was very young. Some people were not optimistic of me doing anything with the national team, but people can judge you, but you decide your destiny. And of course, with God's blessing, you can move mountains. So after Fabish went, when I took the national team, it was a big challenge for me, because of course there were people who did not believe in my young age and my experience, and also a lot of Kenyans don't believe in Kenyan coaches. So that was a big challenge for me. However, I want to say that I was blessed with a very good team. We had a very good unit that we stayed together. I mean, that's the generation of Dennis Oliech, Titus Mlama, John Moore, Robert Mambo. When you look at the kind of players you had, Oniso, then you see we were not actually a team. That was a family. And we had a bond. Musa Otieno was the captain. And with that team, I think we did the best, because with this team we won the Castle Cup. We won the Sekafa tournament after 20 years. And then we qualified for the Cup of Nations. And one of the things that I always say, Sekafa Cup that we won in Tanzania is still in my house, because the federation still owes me some money. And I decided just to put it. Maybe one day I'll put it on auction to recover my money.
His best moment was, however, in 2004, when he guided Harambee Stars to their 5th Africa Cup of Nations appearance after 12 years in the sidelines, to win at least their first match against the Burkinabes.
Well, Dennis Oliech made that. Everybody expected him to blast the ball at the keeper, instead of which he laid the ball off.
It was a very happy moment and a sad moment. Happy because we qualified for the Cup of Nations. However, that qualification had not been paid for 8 months, and I was wondering who was going to pay me then. And I want to thank the management board of Harambee Stars that time, under the chairmanship of Mohamed Nyaoga. When he came on board, and they said, why do we owe these people money? And he put a signature, we paid our backlog of money. But that is one story that has a sad and a happy ending. When we went to Tunisia, I had 3 targets as a coach. My first target was to win our first ever game, because we had never won a match in the Cup of Nations edition. In fact, my first one was to score a goal in normal time, because 4 times Harambee Stars had been to Cup of Nations. They had scored 4 goals, all penalties. Now, I had a team which I knew would score in 90 minutes. And Titus Mlama, I still know he holds a record for the first player to score for Harambee Stars on full time against Mali. Okay, and then we won our first ever game against Burkina Faso. So it was a very good moment. I achieved 2 of my targets. We didn't qualify for second round. However, still, I feel we need to style up in terms of allowances for our players, because when you look at Kenya in terms of paying their players vis-a-vis the top countries where we want to compete against, the difference is massive.
The legendary tactician then left the country for APR of Rwanda before he came back to Kenya to guide Tusker to the 2008 Kagame Cup.
Hii ndio zawadi maalum hasa yenyewe ilikuwa kisubiriwa kwelikweli. Zile pesa ni kama makorombozo mengine, mapambio, nakshi chagizo na. Sasa lile kombe la Afrika Mashariki na Kati ndio linatolewa pale Amerikamata. Mkuu wa mkoa wa Dar es Salaam anamkabidhi aliyokauka kombe juu. Tusker mabingwa wapya wa Afrika Mashariki na Kati kwa ngazi ya vilabu.
Jacob had other stints with the national soccer team Harambee Stars before he decided to finally call it quits in 2010 after several runoffs and frustrations with the football governing body, which owes him arrears up to date.
My last time was in 2010. I was a coach in Tanzania. We lost 3 straight games and I resigned. But it was not because of results. Why I resigned is we had a lot of false promises. That was under Mohamed Hatmi and Kasuve-led federation. To date, we've not been paid our allowances of 2010. Okay, the last time I checked, we were promised the check has not gone through. I always meet with those officials and I just laugh. I ask them, hey, the check has never gone through since 2010. What kind of PD was that? So these are the stories of Kenyan football, and I'm not afraid to talk about it because when you are a leader, you need to be accountable. And these were the people in the federation at that given time.
A man has got to do what he's got to do to survive, and that's how he didn't allow that to get at the better of him to spread his wings further in the media, where he's become a household name behind the scenes, behind the mic, as well as in front of the TV.
My schedule is busy, but I thank God for all that, because sometimes I've met some people telling me, why am I having too many jobs? And I tell them, can you do my job? Can you do radio? Come and I give you that part. Because it's not my liking. I'm in radio because I can talk. And they like the way I talk. Maybe, I don't know. Okay? Then I say, can you coach? Come and coach Liberty. Okay? And I've been able to employ, because I don't have so much time, I employ some coaches. So I've created employment too. And then in commentary, the first time I went on the commentary booth, there was no interview. From there, it has always been like, for me, let me tell you, the jobs that I do, I don't struggle. I do it like it's a passion. So I don't even feel like I'm working.
Indeed, God has been good to him as he helped himself. And so has his family of 3. Carol.
2 are interested in football so much. One, of course, plays for Liberty at the USIU University. He's doing psychology. The other one has just finished his high school, also qualified for university, but he wants to be a football agent. He loves money, okay, and we try to help him. He plays also, he's a defender. Then the third one doesn't like football at all, okay, he's not interested in playing football. He's a IT specialist, but also he's a musician. My beautiful wife, Carol, she has been a pillar in my life. First of all, I commend her because 8 months that Harambee Stars never paid me as a coach of the national team. She supported me. At not given time did she ask me, where is the food coming from? Because she knew, of course, I was working, but I didn't have money. I wasn't being paid. And I want to thank her so much for staying intact for that. And then the second thing, as a coach, you're always away from home for taking care of the boys until they became men. That is also a big one. And more or less, I think she brings so much joy in my life.
And apart from spending valuable time with them, he also finds time to admire God's creation.
One thing that I have passion for is animals. Wild animals. I love them with a passion. And Kenya, we are blessed because, in fact, Nairobi, we have the Nairobi National Park, which is only 30 minutes away. I go there every week or twice every fortnight. I always have to take a drive. Why? I think when we're in the park, it's a natural thing. We become so artificial as human beings. We are not real. But when you go to the park, it reminds me of the Garden of Eden. This is how God wanted people to live. And also, I've adopted a rhino, by the way, at the national park. Okay. 12th, it was in 14th February, I think many years ago. It's called Ghost, by the way.
Jacob Gosmule is indeed a jack of all trades who is not afraid to speak his mind and live his life as the quest for glory continues for our national football teams.
I thank God that I've been what I am today, and I still don't believe I've reached my journey where I want to go, because I have ambitions, I have my dreams also. But so far where God has brought me, I want to say thank you to Him.